how's it going?
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't have too many mythology notes for these chapters, but yeah, I definitely got emotional reading parts of them for sure.
hmm
But let's start with the non-Percy Jackson stuff. We have like a few things that we wanted to talk about. Um, to kind of do like not serious stuff first. Um, there is a situation that has been kind of making its way. None of us follow these people, but like there was a podcast of two girls that went
Oh
under
yeah.
and all of the drama that followed it. And the only thing that I really want to say from that is it got me thinking like, okay, so there's definitely downsides to starting a podcast with someone who is not a friend. You know, like that, obviously, it's not going to work, especially if you barely like each other. Like, that seems to be the biggest problem with this partnership that happened.
hmm
But the other part is with a friend, like, it could be hard to know, like, because these two girls were like nickel and diming every single thing that they did for each other and for the podcast of like, well, I edited on this day and I posted on this day and it's your turn to post on this day. We don't do that. And I kind of wanted to like preface this. I've been a little bit more busy, but I also spend a lot of time not doing anything and have trouble with tasks. So Shannon does our editing. That's kind of our situation at the moment. And I started thinking as I'm like listening to these girls talk about like how they structured their partnership of like we could do a little bit better. I don't know how though. And so like we're kind of stuck here because with TikTok and doing TikTok live as our platform for live streaming, it might not be here in a couple months. We still don't know
Yeah.
what's happening with this platform. So for now, we're just here because it works. Um, but we never started our own TikTok account for this podcast because, like, I mean, we both already had the following to go live. And starting a new podcast account would mean that we would have to make that podcast grow to the point where it can go live, which with only 2 months of lead in might be a little hard.
Yeah, because you have to get 1,000 followers, I think, still.
Yes.
And that's a lot. That's a lot for TikTok now because they make it a lot harder to get new followers and stuff than it used to be many years ago. I also just, I don't know, I think both of us were like, ugh, about the idea of starting an account that was just for the podcast, which I know is like probably ridiculous because
Mhm.
most of the time you do have one, but it's like, do I want to put in effort to make an Instagram account when Instagram is like impossible for anyone to see anything that you post?
Yeah.
No. And so like I would rather just us talk at least right now for the foreseeable future just as ourselves.
Mhm.
It obviously doesn't really, I mean, I don't know, like Becky Riordan watched our podcast without any of that shit. So
Yeah.
why the fuck do I care if you can't find like our own podcast, you can find it any other way from us talking about it. And like maybe like if TikTok actually fully goes away in 2 months, which it does seem somewhat likely that it will at some point this year, since there's no way that they're gonna like make a deal with China at this point. Like maybe we would give like our accounts, or we would make one and give it over to somebody who's not from the US so that they could like still post things here or something. But other than that, I don't know. And mostly that podcast, I was just like, why would you go into like some sort of business making venture, I guess, with somebody that you don't really know? Because like, how do you know that anyone's going to like what you do? And also just the whole thing of like they were like being very hard on each other in that way of like you did this and so you have to do that kind of stuff
Yeah.
because they didn't know each other. And it's like, yeah, because when you actually know the person you're doing this stuff with, everything is much better. And because I just always think like when the epic musical stuff happened, that was the thing that made me come back sooner than I actually was planning on it, was because people were harassing Mandy because I was gone. And I was like, no, I'm not I'm not having my best friend get harassed because they can't harass me. That's absolutely nothing that I would ever allow to happen. And so I came back sooner than I wanted to because of that. And like that stuff was already really hard when all of that was going on. When we get along, obviously. Like I can't imagine like if you got into like some sort of situation like that because of your co-host when you don't even know each other.
Yeah.
And don't even care like about the other person in that way, like how like difficult it would be almost to like deal with that sort of thing because you don't care. And it's like, yeah, that was evident with that sort of thing of they don't care about what's going on in each other's lives because they don't know each other.
Yeah.
And it's like when you actually know each other, you're gonna care more about what's going on. I'm never gonna be the one that pops up and is like, you didn't do something. It's like you're raising a human being.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and Shannon knows, like right now I've kind of bit off more than I can chew task-wise, and it's not gonna get better until summer and my classes are over. But it is gonna get better. It is gonna get better. And so part of me is like, okay, maybe this summer we start actually getting a little bit more serious. Maybe we do 2 episodes a week instead of one 3-hour long one, because we always end up with more to say than we had planned. And also, we never tease the fact that we have a Patreon. We have a Patreon.
Yeah.
And it's just because we're like, what else do we post besides the video before the video is up, you know? And, you know, I played with the idea, like, should I teach Latin? Should I do translation work for it? Should I do, like, mythology guides so that people know which source material to look at for where Rick is getting things from? And I'm not sure. So, it feels like more pressure because it's paid.
Yeah, and it's also like a thing of, I don't know, I feel weird asking people for money when everyone that would watch us likely doesn't have that much. It's just, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't like doing that, and I know that's the way that you have to do that stuff sometimes. But it is like a thing of, when I made it, I set it at like the lowest amount, basically like $5, because I was like, anyone could probably afford $5 as long as you have some kind of job. You can probably afford $5 for a Patreon, even if you don't have any money, because I don't have any money. And one of the only Patreon things that I sign up for, I pay like $5 for 2 of them that I do. And so that's affordable because I want it to be easy for anyone to access that kind of stuff. But then after that, I was just like, people could basically ask us to do anything. Like our patron that's in there, I literally just ask her, like, what do you want us to say? What do you want us to do? And we just go do it. And we're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, she'll tell me, like, you need to talk about this and this and this. And I'll be like, okay, I'll go do that. And then I do that in the podcast episode.
Yeah.
So I guess if you want, like, control over what we say.
Yeah, and I've
go do that.
Our DMs, like, I think once, where I do think that is something that we could do a little bit more often, because every once in a while, like, as we're reading the chapters or as we're just thinking of things, we'll be like, here's a Percy thing we should talk about. And it's like, yeah, we should talk about it. And sometimes we remember, sometimes we don't. So, like, just getting those up somewhere would be nice. But yeah, there's so much more we could potentially do with that, and that we're willing to do, especially as summer comes around. So if you guys have any content ideas for us, just let us know. We know you would never control us, Issa, but we appreciate it.
Issa, why are you still awake? It's late where you are. It's like 11 p.m.
Oh my God.
Go to bed before you fall asleep on live again. I'm just being her mother. That's fine. She's an adult. She's probably as old as I am. That's fine.
But yeah, so that's what that brought up for me, because I was like, yes, this drama is interesting and stuff. Everybody loves to watch a cat fight, but at the same time, like, it's more just like, I realized we're the other end of that, where they were extremely structured and not friends. We're friends and we have very little structure. We had to kind of figure out what our structure is while we're on the pods, but other than like what we say here and how we do it, where it's like, okay, first we're going to talk about show news or any other stuff that's come up in our lives, and then we talk about whatever content we're reviewing at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that was like the thing I wanted to say was like I feel like when people look at podcasts like that where they like go to a studio and they have like nice equipment and things like that, you feel like that's the only way that you can do it. And we're like the polar opposite of that. And like I was saying this to a friend of mine recently who was like wanting to do podcast stuff, but was like, I have a hard time actually doing it. And I told her, like, Mandy and I started doing it on TikTok because automatically on TikTok are recorded. And so there is zero, like, work that we have to do in order to get access to the recording. We would just download the recording and just post it online. And, like, yeah, maybe that's not very interesting for people in the beginning, but if we made it harder than that, the first however many months we were doing it, we wouldn't have done it. We would have stopped doing it because at least if you're somebody like us that has like a hard time trying to do things where it's something that you really like and you like care about it, and so you're like weirdly afraid that you're going to like fail doing it, which is I think how both of us felt at a time, or like afraid that people won't like it or or something. Like that's how we felt at the time. And so it's like, well, if we like tell ourselves that we need to edit every episode and we need to have like show notes and things like that, and we need to have all these things, we're never going to do it, and then it's never going to happen. And so it's like, if that's stopping you, just do it. Even if we do these on our phones.
Yes.
Like every week I like hate my phone when I'm like running out of battery or running out of space when I'm sending our long episodes from my phone to I asked my mom to get me an iPad for my birthday so that I could just airdrop it over to my iPad instead of trying to spend like 6 hours uploading it on my iPhone. And so like we just use things you can find for free or for really cheap online and just do it that way. And just if that helps, like we didn't even start doing notes until like January.
Yeah.
And by that point we have been doing it for like 9 or 10 months. And it's just like, if that's going to stop you from doing it, feeling like you need to be organized, then don't. And just like let yourself do things because it just makes sense to you instead of getting stuck in like, I need to do things that are like good for marketing or whatever. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do what you want to do. And people are probably going to like it because you're just being yourself instead of feeling like they're being marketed to most of the time anyway.
Yeah, we both have major Aquarius placements, so authenticity is something we like literally cannot help. And
yeah, I don't think anyone who could ever watch anything we've ever made would be like, I think you're saying this just to sound good. Like, we're very much obviously just ourselves. No matter what anybody says about us, they can never say that we're not being just like authentic, no matter what we're saying. It's why some people don't like us, but it's also the reason why a lot of people do. Is because it's like, oh, this is different because this is actually unique to you.
Yeah.
You're not just saying the things that everyone else has said already before.
Yeah. Well, and okay, that brings us to our next topic, which was not as happy. Epic. So there's a couple things happening with Epic the Musical that we kind of wanted to touch on just because it feels like there's been a shift since we watched Epic and since we had our whole thing with the fandom. If you guys have zero context, if anyone's watching this on YouTube or anything like later and has no context, we were watching and reviewing Epic the Musical. And when we started getting to Calypso, like that's where Shannon started to get some people like pushing back on her because Shannon hates Calypso in every universe, okay? Calypso is an abuser. She holds men hostage. She is the epitome of female abuser. And so Shannon had a hard time with the songs from Calypso, but then as we got further and we realized like Jorge is getting to the end of this musical, releasing the automation or the animations and stuff, that there is a song called Hold Them Down. And that song is about the suitors in the Odyssey, or, you know, like Penelope's suitors, hatching a plan to kill Telemachus and hold Penelope down. I mean, like, and so Shannon had posted, like, I can't believe this is here, especially because, like, when people tried to convince us to watch this, they were like, well, there's no essay in the Calypso part. There's no essay in this part. And it's like, okay, but you guys never warned us about this. And like, yes, we could have looked up those trigger warnings, but when you have people telling you, just watch it, just give it a chance, like, at
Yeah.
some point you listen, you know?
Well, and also, like, when you're watching something for the first time, I wanted to watch it without having, like, anything within, like, the fandom or anything like that in my mind. Like,
Yeah.
when I watched the first season of Percy Jackson all in one day, I saw a couple videos over the couple months before that, but I actively tried to not actually watch them because I knew that I was going to watch it, and I just wanted to watch it and form my own opinion without seeing what other people thought beforehand.
Mhm.
And so we were trying to do that, and like honest, it's so weird to remember that video. I deleted a lot of them because they were like leaving really horrible comments on like all of them, and so I deleted a lot of the ones that I made back then. But and like right before Christmas, I just posted like a silly like a video like laughing because we had gotten to the song where Odysseus dismembers the sirens. And I just made like a joking video about how people said like this is like a more family friendly thing and there it's not that bad compared to like other things that
Mhm.
have like Greek mythology in it, and then like making a joke about how this song is him dismembering the sirens. And somebody commented on that video and was just like, there's this one song that's gonna come out in like the last saga that's supposed to come out in like tomorrow that should have trigger warnings and stuff on it. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, no one's ever mentioned this song to me before. And they told me the name of it, which was Hold Them Down. And then I looked it up and found a video that was posted in like 2021 where Jorge said, I guess, in one of the top comments of that video was, I guess, him saying on their Discord that he wanted to name it Hold Her Down and
Mhm.
decided that it was too dark. And I was like, yeah, bro. And then when I said that, when I listened to the song and heard how bad it was, and then when the official song came out a couple of days later and I heard that the song was the exact same, I was hoping that it like would be different after many years that he would have realized not to do that. He didn't. And so then I said that that was upsetting because it is. And a bunch of people harassed us for like 2 months about that. And to the point that my account was private for like almost 2 weeks. And like I said earlier, the only reason I brought it back when I did was because people were harassing Mandy. Like the last video she had up, because she deleted the video where they were harassing her on it, was a video of her getting her hair dyed.
Mhm.
And that video had an anti-bullying protection on it because Epic fans were just going to her latest video and just leaving mean comments or just reporting it
Yeah.
because they weren't even taking the time to watch it to find out that it's a video of her getting her hair dyed to find out what was even going on in it. And so at the time, like, we didn't know anything about what was going on in the fandom because we were trying to avoid it. And then we're suddenly like this topic of conversation, which was really weird.
Yeah.
I've realized now, just in the last couple days, that the couple weeks before that all happened with us, like the Epic fandom in December and January, this is what they did. They harassed somebody who has has a YouTube channel that has, 60,000 plus subscribers, who made
Mhm.
lots of content in their fandom, somebody that you think you would treat with like general respect. He said that Calypso is an abuser. That is correct.
Mhm.
Calypso is an abuser. And they harassed him for weeks for saying that Calypso is an abuser. We had no idea that that whole discussion was going on and that there were literally people making videos saying that she isn't an abuser, that she's a victim, and that Odysseus is like being mean to her in Epic the musical and blah 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 blah. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you actually kidding me that this was actually a discussion that people were having? So this fandom went from harassing somebody that they all liked and respected for pointing out a correct fact that Calypso was supposed to be an abuser. During all of that, Jorge made a video saying Calypso has the mind of a child, so thereby making the people who are harassing that person correct,
Mhm.
which is a despicable thing to do, by the way. Like, when all of this happened, I didn't care about this person. I had, like, neutral thoughts about him. He is not the only person I've ever run into that doesn't know how to write like sexual assault without it being like kind of like shocking. Like that happens a lot to people, especially when you're younger and you don't really know. That's what people see a lot, and so that's what they tend to do sometimes. But now I'm like, you're a dick. Like that is a dick move
Yeah.
too, because there's no way he didn't know that that stuff was going on in his own fandom. And to say that, to basically telling the people that are harassing that guy that, oh, you guys are actually the ones that are right, even though that's not at all what is actually right about that character. And then they went from that to harassing us about rape.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's been going on, besides them harassing other people, like now or I see people within like the general fandom who said nothing when that guy was being harassed and said nothing when we were being harassed. They're now saying things because they're harassing artists that are like the literal reason why anybody knows anything about Epic, because everybody watched the animations videos on YouTube. And that was something that we mentioned, I think, last week. But the other thing that's been going on is that Danny Motta is this big YouTuber. He has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He has a reaction channel. And so he just like watches things live for the first time and then, responds to them. And he's been watching Epic the last couple months. And I've been like keeping track because I'm genuinely afraid of what they're going to do to him if he doesn't like something about this thing. Because they don't let you not like something without being horribly punished. Like there are people that still leave me comments sometimes saying that they're trying to run me off of the internet. Like they think that they have the right to tell me that I'm not allowed to post on the internet anymore because I don't like this musical. Like get a grip, for the love of God. But they've been doing that still for the last couple months. Like the comments about Medusa have been especially vicious the last couple months because they're the ones leaving them. And like they tell me that they're Epic fans. If it wasn't obvious from like their their name and stuff, they tell me that that's where they know me from. So it's not like they're keeping it like a secret or anything. But the stuff with Danny Motta was he got to the Vengeance Saga, which is the part with the second Calypso song, the I'm Not Sorry for Loving You song, where she's gaslighting the hell out of Odysseus and telling him, like, you just don't love me enough, and things like that. And I'm like, and being an abuser, that's what abusers do.
Yeah.
And so he did a video, and in that video, he said that he's a sexual assault survivor, that he was abused by, he doesn't say a woman, but it's very obvious that it was a woman, because he's talking about it when talking about Calypso. And the reason why he mentioned it in this video was because he said, like, I feel really good that this thing seems to be taking that seriously, that this is something that's taking this seriously. And my soul died because it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Like, Jorge's out here saying Calypso is a child. She doesn't understand that what she's doing is wrong. He literally said that verbatim. There's a video from him in the second week of December about the Vengeance Saga. Go find him on his account if you've never seen it. He says that. And so it doesn't take her seriously. And so like Danny Motta told the entire world that he's a sexual assault survivor as a man, which is always something that's very hard to do because they're not supposed to talk about stuff like that. I haven't seen anybody being mean to him, and I told people in my comments that if you see anyone being mean to him, please tag me so I can rip them a new one, because that's like the bare minimum that people deserve for making men feel weird about talking about that. But I know sometimes people do that. But it's just a thing of like, he said that because he felt like Epic's version of Calypso took the abuse that he went through seriously. And he mentioned when he said it, that when he told people about it, he kind of made it like a joke when he was talking about it. And I didn't respond or like anything when I posted that video of the clip of him saying this, because I just wanted to just share what he said without any extra input at all. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to mention that people that's common when you're telling people things that are really scary and upsetting, and you're scared to tell people because you don't know what their reaction is going to be. Making a joke out of it or like laughing after you say it is an extremely common thing that a lot of us do because it's hard to do that, and that's just a way to get you to say it in the first place when it's terrifying to do it. And so he thought that it was partly his fault that people didn't believe him or like take it seriously at all because he made a joke out of it. And that's not true at all. I feel like that's obvious, but I just needed to say that just for the record because I didn't in that video. But it's never your fault. If you say that and laugh afterwards, the response should be like what happened?
Are you
Like,
okay?
yeah,
Like,
like no matter what you do or how you say it, people can hear what you're saying. If they don't respond or think that you're joking or don't take it seriously, it's not because you did anything wrong, because they did something wrong. And so the thing with Danny Motta after that happened is Hold Them Down
mhm.
exists. That song, that video with him listening to that is probably going to come out sometime this week. And like imagine like the anxiety, I guess, of knowing that somebody who just admitted to the internet that they were sexually abused, you know that they're going to listen to that song and like while being recorded, and that at least 1 million people are going to watch you react to it, and knowing that all these people are going to have all of these opinions about how you feel about that and like how you respond to that song. And like this is horrible that this is even a thing that has to happen. Like people, I post the video that I posted showing him talk about it. There's a bunch of comments of people genuinely afraid and like worried of what will happen to him when he listens to that song because of how bad the song lyrics are. And it's just an absurd thing that this song is this way, that it has to be like this. And like I posted this tonight that like Mandy's never actually listened to the song.
Nope.
That when she saw how upset I was by it, she just was like, no, never mind, goodbye. With like epic stuff in general, especially with how they reacted to me talking about why that song was hard.
Yeah.
So I just want to read like the lines from the song that are really, really bad, of the things that of why people are afraid for him to hear it. Like the first half of the song is them talking about killing Telemachus, and there are some lines in there that are like ugh, of them talking about like his body shaking and stuff like that, and they're talking about killing him, but it feels like thematically similar to the other half. And so when they get to the other half and they start talking about Penelope, the lines are, and they said, and when the deed is done, the queen will have no one to stop us from breaking her bedroom door. And I need to specify how it's plural, not singular. It is plural.
Yeah, because I've heard people made that argument with me. It's just Antinous, and
No.
it doesn't seem to be.
It says to stop us from breaking her bedroom door, stop us from taking her love and more, and then we'll hold her down while her gate is open, hold her down while I get a taste, hold her down while we share her spoils. I will not let any part go to waste.
Holy,
Imagine being me and hearing that song
like,
and
yeah.
hearing those lines.
I won't get into the nitty gritty of what that implies, but that implies a whole bunch. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And he wanted to name that song Hold Her Down? Fuck you. Like, genuinely, I deserve anybody like me who's experienced that sort of thing before. We, like I said last week, we deserve compensation for being a scapegoat. We deserve money from Jorge for having to listen to that song. And I hear that song all the time because, of course, when I posted how upset that song made me and then didn't like just post that, but then explained in multiple videos afterwards why I didn't like the song and why I felt like he needed to work on how he wrote like women characters and things like that, considering how he described a female character in that song and things like that. I explained why I felt that way. I didn't just like leave it for people to wonder what I meant. People then, not only did they attack me for saying that, every single video that they ever posted where they were talking shit about me, they used the song in their video as the audio. And so I still see almost every like 3 or 4 days a video with the song playing. And it's like, you heard somebody say that it like this, listening to this song was so traumatizing that they don't want to listen to it ever again, and they no longer want to even listen to this person's music ever again because I don't feel like it's like safe to listen to his music after that. And you use the song in videos about me on purpose just to be a jerk. Like, that's the only reason you would do that, is to say that about me and then use the song in all the videos about me and then tell me that I'm not allowed to like Medusa. Those were all things that you did to personally attack me. And I guess, like, I keep seeing videos now of people, like, worried about Danny Motta hearing the song. And, like, I'm glad that you have empathy for him having to hear this song. Why can't you have empathy for everybody that way? Like, why can't you have empathy for every sexual assault victim that heard that song? Because I was not the only one who didn't like it. I was just the one that you all attacked the most. But there were other people who left me some comments or DM'd me and stuff that felt the same way. They just didn't say anything because they didn't want to be attacked by all of you. Why can't you do that? And like, it's just, that song is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
That is like the worst, honestly, one of the worst ones I've ever heard. Like, I hear songs all the time that talk about sexual assault. I honestly like it most of the time because it makes me feel like somewhat understood, you know? But I've never really had a song where I've like had like flashbacks like while I'm listening to it, like I did with that song, and like I still do whenever I think about it too much or hear it too much. It's just, that should never happen. Like, you should never write a song that makes people feel that way. And the critique I always had about Jorge was that he writes these songs to go viral on TikTok. And so you know that a lot of people are going to hear this. I will never understand why he wrote a song that graphic that he knew that millions of people were going to hear.
Yeah.
And how that would affect people. And now, like, everyone is sitting there waiting to see how traumatized Danny Motta is by listening to this song. And it just, I'm glad that people are like weirdly realizing that this song is bad. But it's just a kind of like it's just a crazy thing. Person that made, who you all attacked viciously for weeks on end, he was right about Calypso. I was right, and we were right about how the suitors, there are things like that in the Odyssey, but it is extremely different. They are dangerous the entire time. They don't just sit there for 20 years doing nothing but making gross comments like edgelords on Reddit, and then decide to do gang rape the day before he comes home. Like, that's ridiculous. For, like, people, like a group of men to be fine, basically, for 20 years, and then suddenly, just that one moment, decide to turn into the most crazy villains of all time. That's not at all how that happens in the Odyssey, at all. They're dangerous the entire time, and they're, like, the danger with them is there the entire time, which is why it happens that way. And also, the idea of them attacking Penelope like that is crazy.
Yes.
Like, women who have, like, money and privilege and power, still to this day, it is a huge, like, social thing to go after them. But yeah, I was saying, I think that my dad got away with what he did with me because we were really poor. And so, usually people with money and stuff, it takes a lot to get away with doing things with them. You still can, obviously. Like, Woody Allen exists, and other people like him. But it takes a lot more, like, effort and planning and things like that when it does against people that are marginalized in some way where you can get away with it.
Well,
And so the idea that they just immediately are like, let's not do anything to anybody else except gang rape his wife immediately. Like, what?
people like your Harvey Weinsteins, your Woody Allens, they're doing it to people that are beneath them, so to speak. Like people
Yeah.
that either work for them or Woody Allen's case, like a stepdaughter.
Yeah.
But it's usually somebody beneath them. So like, yeah, a couple points that I want to touch on is Calypso being extremely innocent. Let's say naive teenage brain. Teenagers know what rape is. Like teenagers know. Teenagers know you shouldn't touch somebody's body when they say no, okay? Like,
Yeah.
at a 12-year-old, I could probably ask him, do you touch somebody's body when they say no? And he'd probably be like, no. Like, you know?
Even little kids know not to do that kind of stuff
Yeah.
because they wouldn't like it themselves. Um, like that's one of those things I've realized that a lot of times when it comes to like female abusers, the thing that people say is like, "Oh, they didn't understand what they were doing. They're like mentally ill or whatever." And if you just like explain to them what they were doing or whatever, they would somehow stop doing it. And it's like, no, they know what they're doing. They're just a woman and also abusive as fuck.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. Like she knows what she's doing. Like I guess we didn't really make the point because I don't like to think about it. But Calypso, like thinking about her, she is somebody that she genuinely does not think that the men that she does that to matter.
Nope.
Like she does not even consider how her actions affect other people because it's like she's looking at like when you're a human, you see an ant like crawling around on the floor. You don't think about that twice before you stomp on them. That is how Calypso sees the heroes that she wants to trap on her island. She does not think it's possible for them to want to reject her. She does not think that their needs matter at all. She does not think that what she's doing is rape because she doesn't think their opinion matters. She doesn't think that how they feel matter because she is so much more powerful than they are. So why would I care if they're upset? Because my thoughts and my opinions are so much more than than hers. Like why would I spend any time thinking about theirs because they're so much lower than me? I don't even care. I don't care. And that's who like Calypso is. Like that's who she's supposed to be. There are people like that in life that do things like that. Like my dad. That's what it was like with him. He had complete control over me. I knew that. He didn't care about anything that happened to me. He didn't consider my feelings at all. He thought that anything he wanted to do to me was fine because I was his child. And that's just what he thought. That's what Calypso is doing. That is terrifying.
Exactly.
It is terrifying to listen to somebody talk to you and be like, you don't have any humanity, so I'm not even consider that you're a human. Like that is one of the most terrifying sort of discussions you can have because there's nothing you can say to them to get them to see you like that, and they will do anything they want to you. That is Calypso. That is why she doesn't let Odysseus leave for 7 years. That is why she tries to get Percy to stay by lying to him for all of that time when he's a 14-year-old scared little child. That's her in every single version. And so it's wild for people in the epic fandom to be like, oh, she's just a sad like child. She's just innocent. She's a victim because she just doesn't understand what she's doing. It's like, no, she does. She doesn't think that their feelings matter and sees nothing wrong with doing that to them.
When it comes to my best friend getting triggered, I am super serious about this. I don't send her innuendo jokes without like a warning of like, hey, I found this post really funny, but it has an innuendo in it. And I've only done that once because I still get nervous of like, I don't want to accidentally trigger her. And I know that it's not that sensitive, but there's like part of me, I don't know what your dad did, and I don't ever want to know. And so I don't ever want to accidentally send you something that reminds you of him.
You know more than anyone else does, but about what he actually did. But that's how people should treat you.
Yeah.
After you experience something like that. Like if you actually do survive all of that kind of stuff, especially if it goes on as long as it did with me, even if it was only a couple times. If you know that somebody has something like that in their life, that's how you should treat them. You should make sure that you're not gonna accidentally do that. Like most of the mutuals and stuff that I have on TikTok, a good amount of them went through the same sort of stuff as me growing up, which is why we're friends. And I will message some of them sometimes when I know that something in the news is triggering for them and warn them about it. Like whenever like the P. Diddy stuff is everywhere, I'll message someone like a certain person and tell them like just to like warn you this is going on, so we need to like try to not see anything that anyone's talking about when it comes. The fact that people purposely used that audio when they were making like videos about me, making fun of how upset I was just like, you don't see me as a person. You generally don't see me as a human being. You are making a song making fun of a rape victim for being upset about having to hear a song about a woman being gang raped, using the audio of the song playing during it.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? And you are doing that for a creator on the internet that will never see this video. And if he does see it, he's not going to say anything about it.
Yeah, well, I certainly tagged him in people's videos. I tagged him in the girl who told you to jump off a cliff. Nothing happened there.
With 40,000 likes on a video that said that I should jump off of a cliff because I don't like videos. I don't like songs about gang rape.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't care if you're joking. That's not a funny joke.
No.
I legitimately, like, and I know that you posted this to your friends only. I legitimately messaged Jorge. I am scared that these people want my friend to, like, unalive herself, and I will not, like, I'm scared they're not going to stop until she does it. Can you please say something? And message never even got open, which I understand, like, he probably has a ton of messages, but at the same time, the fact that, like, I don't know, that you're taking all of this fan input, yet you can't even, like, take care of what your fandom is. I don't know. There's so much to that.
Yeah.
But to segue to, again, something a little bit happier, I wanted to talk adaptations because I feel like a lot of people misconstrued some of the things that we said during that Epic the Musical part of our coverage. And it's mostly because you were triggered, first of all, and we were trying to take care of you. And second of all, like, things that we said in Jorge weren't necessarily, or said about Jorge weren't necessarily meant to apply to everything. We generally are okay with things being adapted, and a lot of people would probably think it hypocritical that we saw this adaptation of Greek mythology and we were like, this is shitty and it shouldn't exist. But yet we're watching an adaptation of a book to a TV show and saying this is the best thing we've ever seen. Especially when there's a lot of book fans who are like, well, this isn't 100% book accurate, so I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no problem with things getting adapted, and even with things getting adapted in ways that changes the story, it's more like when you're not being careful with the changes. So a good example of that like we can get out of the epic kind of talk is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Lord, as I like roll my eyes.
Yes, so I wanted to give that one a fair shot when the live action came out because I knew all of the millennial fans are going to be like, oh, I don't like this automatically without even watching it, right? And so I did watch it. I did watch it and tried to enjoy it. But there were parts that genuinely were hard to enjoy knowing the actual story, like Suki's characterization. Suki went from being the girl who humbles Sokka to the girl who has this unbearable crush on him because she's been stuck on Kyoshi Island. And Sokka is no longer sexist, but we're ignoring the part of that story where that is part of his character development. It was never glorified, like, oh yeah, we should be just like Sokka, who hates women and thinks like he's this big bad dude. No, it was like, Sokka is wrong, and he gets humbled really bad, to the point where he literally gets on his knees and tells a girl, can you please teach me? I need to learn from you.
Well, and also, like, the reason why Sokka felt like that was because of the pressure he felt to take care of his sister after his mom died.
The whole tribe.
And that's a very traumatizing thing. And so the whole thing of, like, to be, like, weirdly morally correct in that strange way about characters is, like, character flaws are there for a reason. They should be there because nobody is a perfect person, but it also helps you learn about that character more by understanding why they feel that way. And so the new Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation seems to be like taking the flaws that made you get really interested in these characters and just be like, oh, we're just going to get rid of that stuff. Like the thing that made me be like, can we talk about this? Because I don't know what to, I'm going to like lose it, is them saying that in the new season that they filmed, that Toph is more feminine. And I was like, then why is she named Toph? And it, like, yeah, this is like a, it's kind of like a more personal thing for me to, about this sort of thing because I'm not a feminine girl like that. Like,
Yeah.
one of the critiques I know people give Rick Riordan a lot is that like most of the girls in Percy Jackson are not like feminine that way, and they feel like they're like putting that sort of feminist like stuff down, or like the idea that like if you're like a girly girl you're less than. I don't care that he doesn't have any girls like that because most of the time in books that's who's in them. And so, and also like Becky's not like that.
Yeah.
And so Becky's like more similar to me where she's like very comfortable with like the more masculine sides of her. She's not like a feminine girl. And so that's what they're going to write about because these books are about the both of them. And so I don't know, maybe that makes me a jerk, but I just don't care that there isn't any of the more girly girl characters in Percy Jackson because they're everywhere. And at least in this one book series, I see people that remind me more of me, and that makes me feel nice because I don't see that very often. Or there's the whole trope of like the character that is like that going through like a makeover and becoming more feminine, and then when they become more feminine suddenly they're like a lot happier. And the idea that like if you're like a tomboy it's because there's something wrong with you and you're not like happy in your life or something is like an overall trope too. And so I love the fact that all those characters in Percy Jackson are just like that. And in the same way, Toph's whole thing is that she doesn't want her, like, literally the first episode with her is about how she is pretending to be like this overly feminine person like she's supposed to be to fool her parents, but the real her is somebody that's like fighting people in a ring and is like very masculine, is very comfortable being masculine. Like I saw a TikTok video this week of somebody talking, maybe you posted it actually, of somebody talking about how she's excited that a man is depicting her when they do like the play about them.
Island players. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really excited about that because it means that she's like, people see her as like strong and tough and stuff, and that's what she likes to think of herself as. And so the idea that this show is bringing in somebody to play Toph who isn't disabled at all and they said that they're giving her a disability coach instead of just hiring somebody that has low vision. They're instead paying an entire person to tell her, probably in an absolutely absurd way, how to act like you're disabled when she's not disabled. And then Toph is going to be like more feminine. That's the only thing they've said about her. And I'm like, so what is she going to do? Because Toph's whole thing is that she like disarms people because she's different than they expect her to be, like this feminine sort of Asian stereotype that can be very harmful for Asian women. And she like subverts that stereotype by instead being Toph, who is constantly beating people up, and she can't even see, but she's doing that. Toph is just, that's how she is. And so if you have her on the show and she's not subverting that very problematic in the least way possible to describe that trope for Asian women, then why is she there?
Yeah.
And like I don't think they've ever even thought about it like that. They're just like, oh, we're just gonna make her different. And so I guess when we talk about like adaptations and what makes them good or bad, I feel like the Percy Jackson movies and the Percy Jackson show like sums it up, because I know there are people on Reddit that are like, well, an adaptation is good if it's like exactly the same as like the source material. And then they get confused about why Rick Riordan and Becky are letting things be different in the show, because then they don't understand what makes something good. And it's like, nobody wants a carbon copy.
No.
That would be very boring. What people actually want is just like the overall kind of idea, theme, thematics, like character arc and development. As long as those things are still there, and especially when it comes to the show, they found ways to have those same arcs happen just in like different ways that I thought was actually better. Like Luke trying to recruit Percy and then trying to kill him, and Annabeth throwing a dagger at his head. That I thought was better because it actually makes a lot of sense to me that Percy and Annabeth would realize after Percy and Grover almost got dragged into hell that Luke was obviously like gave them those shoes, and so he obviously wasn't trustworthy. And so it makes sense that they would try to test him the way that they've tested other people during that quest to see. And we're just like hoping that he wouldn't be that bad, and then we're devastated when he was as bad as what it seemed. That felt very much in character for them. And so it was like, yeah, this is very natural in the way that I'm like confused almost that Rick didn't write that in the original book. And so like the reason why people hate the Percy Jackson movies isn't because they change things, is because they change things where the characters don't even resemble the original characters anymore. Because it's like what we said before when we were talking about them changing like the Tunnel of Love scene by not having like the spiders there. They don't need them there because they found a different way to like show Annabeth having emotions about something. So they don't need the spiders to be there. That's the overall idea behind that scene of why that's there. And
Yes.
so in the Percy Jackson movies, like in the second movie, Tyson is like this still is like a sweet child that is a very nice person, but everyone is rancid to him. And I actively want the Tyson in the movies to beat everybody up because he's doing all these nice things for them and they don't deserve it. They're horrible to him. Percy is horrible to him in the movie version of Sea of Monsters. He treats him like garbage. They act like he's a problem. They don't want to bring him anywhere. They constantly make jokes and stuff about how stupid he is. Percy would beat himself up if he ever even thought about doing something like that. Like, this child has a complex being mean to animals, much less being mean to, like, real people that he feels responsible for that are related to him or something. But it's just, that's what makes those movies bad. It's not that they change things, it's that they change things to the point that the characters don't resemble who they were in the original story. Like, Luke is just this edgelord that walks around playing video games and wearing all black, like he listens to My Chemical Romance. And he's not scary in the way that he's supposed to be. Percy is more of like a jerk. You generally don't know why Percy and Annabeth are supposed to like each other when
Yeah.
you watch the movies, because there's nothing about them that makes you want them to be together.
Like they give more attention to him and Clarice, and that was weird.
And they
Um,
like leave Grover in the underworld. They're horrible to Grover in the movies. They're just overall they just are horrible. And the every like kind of point that the books was trying to make for every single character and every single god and every single thing in the movies wasn't made. It like never even gets to like step one of
yeah.
what they were trying to do, like in the very first book even, because they distorted the characters so much into these like weird like monster versions of them. And so that's why I say, like, I like Logan Lerman, but he never played Percy Jackson. I don't know who that guy is, but it's not Percy. Like kind of Percy, but really not at all, because that's not him. And that's like the main thing with adaptations is the reason why we didn't like Epic isn't necessarily because they changed things. It was more like the nature of how they changed it was the thing that bothered me even before all the super triggering stuff was how what they kind of used. I said this at the time, but the reason why I liked the Odyssey is because Odysseus is like is generally trying to be a good person, and he's being forced to do these things he normally wouldn't do in order to get home to see Penelope. But in the original Odyssey, Penelope is like this person that he thinks like, I don't want her to be upset with me. And like when you love like someone in your life, you think about them in a way like that. Like you think like, I don't want this person to be disappointed in me. When there's people you love in your life, you think about them and you actively like make choices while you think about them, like especially after that whole Epic thing happened. If I want to post something about Epic, I think about it for like 5 days and tell her before I do it in case the same thing happens again somehow. Because of how that happened the first time, because I don't want it to negatively affect like her on top of me. And I don't want that to happen anymore. And so I think more about that stuff now because I never thought that sort of thing could happen, but it did. And it's the same sort of thing with like Odysseus, that he thinks about Penelope of like, I respect this woman and I want her to respect me when I come home, even if I have to do these things that are hard and things that I don't want to do. I still want her to respect me as a person when I do get home.
Yeah.
The Epic version of that, instead, they're like, just need to do whatever to get home to Penelope, and I will use her as inspiration to do these horrible things. But there's none of that, like, I respect her so much as a person, so I'm trying to do things in the best possible way. In Epic the musical, he's just horrifying. And he justifies being horrifying like that because, well, I have to get home to my wife. And so that's a big change about how you're showing that relationship. In one of them, it's like, I have respect for this person. And so I'm trying to figure this stuff out while knowing that I'm going to go home one day and have to tell her about everything that happened. And I don't want her to think that I'm a bad person because I love her so much that I don't want that to happen. But in Epic, it's like, I'm just going to become a murderer because I need to get home to my wife. And that's all that really matters. And that's like a adaptation change that he did. That's fine. If you like that, fine. That's fine. But that's like a change in a way that feels like it's changing their story and their relationship from the original story. And that's why we don't like it, because it feels like it's changing things in a way that we wouldn't want.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
will say one thing about the Avatar adaptation that I think was great, like A plus, give me more of this, is they inserted more interactions between Zuko and Iroh that weren't there in the series. That added to like, these are why these characters are together and love each other and protect each other. So they have a scene where Zuko goes to Iroh at Liu Chen's funeral, and everybody else is just kind of giving him very like standard, I'm really sorry that happened. But Zuko finds something that Liu Chen gave him, is like, he gave me this, I want you to have it. I'm really gonna miss him. And it's one of those touching moments. And then the other one is like when Zuko gets banished and he's sent on a ship, like, smallest ship. Iroh has all of his bags. He's like, I'm ready to go with you. And Zuko's like, why would you come with me? Like, and Iroh says, I have everything I need on this ship. And the implication being you. Like, I just want to follow you. And then they play Leaves from the Vine in the background. I cried. I legitimately cried. That is a good adaptation because it adds to what we already have, and like you said, with the Tunnel of Love scene, it almost adds more because Annabeth has to say, I care about this dude. I don't want him to die right here. I've never challenged how the gods do things at all, but I'm going to right now in this moment because what the hell is happening,
Yeah. Even in the episode before that, when they're at the St. Louis Arch,
Yes.
and instead of Percy just ending up in the elevator with Echidna, he instead tricks them.
Yes.
The only time that trick will ever happen is that time, but he tricks he tricks Annabeth into going, like, shoving her back down the stairs, so he's the one fighting Echidna. Instead, it's like him making the choice, instead of it just being by, like, randomness, the fact that he's, like, choosing that and showing those traits that he has in himself of not caring what happens to him kind of stuff, that is very much part of his character, that makes that better.
Yes.
And especially it makes it scarier for Annabeth and Grover too, that they have to like see him make that choice and banging on the door asking him to let them in, and he doesn't let them in. And so that's it just makes like the storyline better to like watch him do that, then watch them be so relieved in the next episode, and then have him almost do it again. And Annabeth just like refuses the second time to be like, absolutely not. I refuse to leave this place until I figure out how to fix this stupid chair. Because this person has almost killed themselves for me twice in the last 2 days. And I'm just not going to let this happen anymore. But it's like you need that when you're watching a TV show. You need to see like Annabeth changing her mind about him or getting to know him. Like when you're reading the Lightning Thief, you're in Percy's head. And so the part about the book that I remember at the end is when they get to the whole book, he's worried that, you know, Grover or Annabeth are going to betray him when they get to the end, and they're not going to try to save his mom. And then when they get to the underworld, they both say like, let's go save your mom. And he thinks like, oh my God, I'm so relieved that these people, you know, didn't do that. Now I can actually like trust them, and they might actually be my friends because they didn't turn against me. But when you're watching it on a show, you need to see that out loud because we're not in his mind. And so that's why they added scenes like that in. And it just works a lot better. And because it's a TV show. Or even the scene where Annabeth is in the underworld when she gets stuck in like I forget what that place is called, but because she has a regret. And
Asphodel.
Yeah.
Asphodel.
Oh yeah, Asphodel.
I hate that word because I read it more than I say it.
Yeah, and when she gets stuck in there, Percy has to leave her there, and he has to trust that his dad's pearl things will save her. When he doesn't trust his dad at all. And he really, really doesn't want to, but she has to tell him, like, you have to let me go and believe that this will work. And it does work, but that's something hard for him that just makes their friendship overall better. And just more meaningful when you get to the end. And everything happens, it's much more serious with Luke. But it's just those things are there because they help you understand the characters faster. And the thing I always try to say to like people who critique the show is that they don't have to do all that setup stuff in season 2.
Yeah.
They don't have to explain how the world works or what camp is or any of that kind of stuff. And so that's why they can just like go. Like as soon as the season starts, they can just go. And it's like a nonstop sort of thing because they don't need to spend all of that like walk and talk time anymore because we have all of their characterization set up. We know the overall arcs of the story. We know who everybody is. So they can just like get into everything right away. And so the overall idea is not that like adaptations have to be exactly the same as the original source material. It's just as long as they don't defer from like the overall kind of thing, like narrative, like character development they're supposed to reach by like the end of that book or season. That's really the important thing. And like when we talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, like none of them reach anything by the end of the first season, and it's hard to believe that that will be better in the second season when they're talking about Toph being feminine.
Yeah.
And things like that. It's like, then what is she gonna do? Like, what is her character arc gonna be this entire show if she apparently is fine with being how her parents want her to be? Why does she want to leave? Like, just like the most basic thing, why does she want to leave and go with them?
I mean, I'm sure they'll stick with her parents still don't want her to be a bender, but like, they gave her a teacher, it just wasn't the right teacher, so not even that. But yeah, and I also want to touch really quickly on sexual assaults as like a theme, because that is something that came up. And we said Jorge should never touch it. We said certain people should never touch it. And I wanted to clarify, we are not against depictions of that. I don't think they need to be graphic. I've had some graphic ones, and I have not gone through this myself. But I've had graphic ones sit with me for a long time. Sons of Anarchy has one, and like the fallout from it makes it a little bit better because people believe her and help her because it's a rival gang. You know, like, of course a rival gang they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to get them, you know, but like, it very much just feels like a bro fest at the same time. If you watch Sons of Anarchy, I'm talking Gemma, like, I won't go into too much detail, But they mostly show her face. There's the implication of what's happening, and it still sits with me like, oh my gosh, that scene was terrible. You know, like that scene was so awful. And I don't think that it needed to go that in depth to what was happening to her. I don't think I needed to see her facial reactions that long, because at some point they just zoomed in on Katie Seagal's face and like let the implication of what's happening happen. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That was one of those things with the epic stuff that really bothered me, that generally honestly didn't make sense, because people were telling me that you just don't want any of this to be ever talked about in media, while they're also making fun of me for liking Medusa. And it's like, why do you think I like Medusa? What are you doing? Like, I like her because that's her story. So do you think that it doesn't make any sense? But um like in Danny Motta's video, he went on this whole thing about like some people think that when you shouldn't talk about sexual assault in media. And I was like, I swear to God, if he is saying that because of the things that people said, because of what they think I was saying, I will actually jump off of a cliff, because that is not at all what I'm saying. I like literally am still alive right now because there was media that was made that either had sexual assault in it or had themes that were basically the magical version of that when I was, growing up and all through all the years until recent times. Like, I say that I don't want Jorge to do it because he doesn't handle it well. Because he doesn't understand kind of the gravity of what he is doing. Because I don't think that anyone who does would ever name a song, want to think about naming a song, Hold Her Down. Because that is one of the most, like, traumatic parts of the whole thing, is that happening. Like, I hate sexual assault victims hate going to the dentist because of that. If you really want to be honest about it, like that's why we're so terrified of going to the dentist, is because of that. And so naming a song that is just, you don't understand what you're doing. And so if you don't understand what you're doing, I'm not going to spend the time listening to it to try to tell you, because I don't need to do that.
yeah.
I don't need to do that to myself. Other people can do that, not me. If somebody else wants to do that, like, go for it. But it's not going to be me. And so when I say that is because he doesn't handle those themes well, and so I feel like he is more hurtful to the people that are hurt the most by that sort of media than otherwise. I'm fine with people talking about it or using it in their media, as long as they understand, like, you know, that that's a difficult subject and that people are likely going to have a lot of different opinions no matter how you depict it, but you have to think about it a lot before you show it, because that's just something that is very hard, and that's what you should do. You should just think about that kind of stuff before you really put something in there. Like the new Star Wars show Andor that I really want to watch because everybody loves it. Their new season came out, and I asked Jean, a friend of ours, who I asked her if she watched it yet, and so she said she was planning on it. And I asked her, like, can you tell me, because I saw articles on Threads about how there's some sort of sexual assault in Andor. And I'm like, I've never watched it before, so I don't even know when it happens, but I think that it happens in the season that just came out, because people were there were articles about it, so it seemed like it was something new. And I just asked her, like, when you watch it, can you tell me, like, what it's like how bad it is, so that I know when it happens, and then if I should, and then so I know beforehand, so I can know when it's going to happen, so I can have an idea and, like, be prepared when it's going to happen, and then decide if it's that bad that I'll just, like, skip over that part and not really watch it. So it's like, that's the kind of stuff, is like, I don't not want that stuff. I want that stuff, because the only way that people who have been through it, especially if it's a secret, like it's something that happened to you when you were a kid, or even when you're an adult but you've never told anybody that it happened to you before, the only way that you have to, like, really talk about it without people realizing that you're talking about it is by talking about it, the themes of it happening in books and movies and shows and stuff. Like Danny Motta, from what people told me in my comments, has covered shows with themes of sexual assault before. And like a couple people were in my comments being like, I wonder what made him say this finally in a random video about Epic. And I responded to them being like, because the depiction of it in Epic was close enough to his abuse, and he felt like people would believe him if he said it now. That's why he said it now. But like, he likely watched things with those themes because that was stuff that he was trying to work through by watching media about it. That's what we do. Like, I don't want it to never be there. I just want it to be there in a way that, like, has people like us in mind. Like, has the people that will be hurt the most in mind about it, so that, because I don't think that Jorge or anyone else like him, who, because he's not the only one that has made something like that before. I don't think that they're horrible, malicious, like, malignant, narcissistic people or anything like that. I think that they just genuinely don't think about that. Because I don't think that if they did think about people like me or the other people that are in my comments and whatnot, or Danny, I don't think that they would write those things the way that they do if they did think about, like, how would somebody feel like this if this is their life experience? If they really, like, thought about it from our perspective, I don't think that they would write that stuff that way. But they just didn't do it. And I don't know why they didn't in this situation. It's not up to me to figure that out, but it's just, they clearly didn't. And so I just hope that people know that nobody is saying not to make media with those themes, especially with our whole situation right now. Like, a rapist is president. Like, he's like fully admitted many years ago to raping many women. And so he was found guilty twice of raping somebody, like, the year before he became president again. And so when you have somebody like that in charge of everything, we definitely need media that brings up those sort of themes of feeling like, you know, going through that. And even if it comes across in a different way, still feeling like violated in that way, that is along with the themes of that happening. Like, that needs to be out there, because that's the only time we're going to hear it right now.
Yeah.
And so it's not that. It's just, you have to actually think. You just have to actually think about what you're doing. Like, and I guess the overall thing is, like, you don't need to put out all these crazy details in order for people to get the idea across. Is the overall thing I wish people would understand, is that you don't need to do that. Like, we never have a scene, like, at least in the books, of Percy Jackson where Luke is, like, actively grooming somebody, like, physically. Because you don't need to.
Yeah.
You see all the stuff he's doing. You don't need to physically see it. It would make it, like, too much if you did, because you see how scary he is already. You don't need to add that stuff in necessarily to make it obvious what he's doing.
Exactly.
And so it's that kind of stuff of, like, you don't need to put that stuff in, because you can make them scary without that. And that's what I mean by, like, good writing. Like, good writing, you can make them seem very predatory without, it feels like people fall back on, like, the over the top stuff because they don't know how to write it. And so they kind of fall back on doing, like, the most dramatic, like, offensive kind of thing to, like, shock people, because it's the only way they know how to, like, get people to understand.
Yeah.
Like, Jorge could make those suitors seem terrifying without being that, like, overt about the words in that song if he wrote them that way beforehand and, like, you know, wrote a storyline, like, building that up and stuff. He wouldn't have had to make it so aggressive like that if he wrote a storyline beforehand. But he had to do it like that in that song because it was coming out of basically nowhere.
Yeah.
And he didn't, it's just, that's just what that is. And,
Yeah,
okay.
I just wanted to make that clear because I know someone's going to clip something in a weird way where it makes it seem like, well, you guys said no sexual assault in media ever. And
So no, we didn't.
And even if we said something you could clip that way, that was a very hard time on both of us. Like, both of us were talking to our therapists about Epic the Musical. And that's never something that should need to happen necessarily.
No, like, if you want to, like, have proof, like, One of my favorite book series of all time is like the kind where I literally walk up to it at the bookstore and just touch it. Is the
Mhm.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, and in the first book, there's like a very graphic rape scene, and I'm fine with it happening the way that it is because it's part of the story, and so I'm okay with it because of what that book series is doing. One of my other favorite books is Perks of Being a Wallflower, which has a reveal at the end that he was abused by his aunt, and so um, there's lots of things like that I love a lot.
Yeah,
It doesn't stop me from loving them because they treat me with respect when I'm reading those books, and
exactly.
so I don't feel dehumanized by reading them. That's it. That's all you got to do.
It's like the bar is on the floor, guys. Like it really is. But let's dig into the chapters for today.
Oh wait, one thing I did want to mention, just like tiny like news thing that was very weird.
Oh yeah.
Today was earlier this week. One of the updates accounts posted that the Percy Jackson season 1 is going to be on the Disney Channel. And I remember at the time that I looked at the times and I was like, how are they showing 2 episodes in an hour? Because most of the episodes are longer than a half hour and they would be less time because they would show commercials and stuff. But I didn't really think about it because I was like, well, I don't think that somebody would make that up. That's really weird to make up. And so whatever. And I just like moved on. And Becky was posting about it because she was like, nobody told me and Rick that they were doing this. And I
Yeah.
was like, what? And so she was posting about it. And earlier today, she was like, I'm not sure that this is like, I'm not sure about this, like if this is real, basically.
Yeah, she said she's gonna try to confirm it.
Yeah, and I responded to her saying just like, yeah, that does actually what I just said. Like actually the time of the doesn't give enough time for the commercials. So and I told her like I remember thinking that when I first saw that posted the other day, but I just didn't think that somebody would make that up because that's such a weird thing to make up. And she had to talk to like people from Disney, I'm sure, and eventually came back and said like it's real. It's just that the times that's listed on that one website that people posted is wrong. But it is real. It is going to be on the Disney Channel. They just, for some reason, didn't tell her or Rick, which is interesting. Like,
Yeah, that's weird.
okay. But otherwise, she said also that that the 20th anniversary is the end of June, and they said they're going to do stuff for that to like celebrate 20 years of the books, and so there'll probably be things that's in the summertime so the kids can do
Yeah.
stuff, whatever stuff they would do, they can do that since it's during the summer. I'm assuming because we now figured out child labor laws that they probably just why the show's coming out in December is they probably didn't have enough time for it to come out this summer. It's
Mhm.
either the summertime or Christmas time because they're in school. And so they didn't have enough time to get it done completely by the summertime. So they're going to do whatever else they're going to do this summer. Becky will let us know whatever that is. But she was basically just saying, like, I know that it's like quiet right now and she's not happy with how quiet it is either when it comes to like Disney stuff. But she said that it will start ramping up soon, especially this summer when it's the 20-year anniversary. So
Yeah.
that's good, even though that was very confusing. And
Yeah.
she was like actively asking us for help to figure it out, like because, and I was like, okay, next time I see something and she hasn't said anything, I'm just gonna ask her about it if this is true to like skip all this confusion, so we can figure it out much faster because that was very weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell the Riordans when you're putting their show on TV.
Exactly. Like they'll put the message out if you tell them.
Yeah. Okay, these
Okay.
chapters are so much.
Yes. Okay. So chapter 15, we steal some slightly used wings, which like the implication is right there of what happens in the chapter title. But we start off. They escape because Miss O'Leary came out of when they were fighting Antaeus, or when Percy was fighting Antaeus, and all of them are able to escape. All of them being Rachel, Annabeth, Ethan Nakamura, and Percy. Miss O'Leary at some point left Percy. Percy realizes she's not there anymore. He's like, "Oh shoot, I lost the dog." Even though she's a hellhound that can handle herself.
It's
But
just like Percy, stop it. Percy, stop. please, for the love of God, stop telling yourself
Exactly.
you're a bad person
And
because you didn't keep track on where the giant hellhound is when you were running for your life.
yeah, they like literally ran for their life so hard that Rachel like collapses and is like, I can't run anymore.
Yeah. And Ethan is like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and so yeah, what Ethan says, and this probably goes to show that maybe he was a little bit brainwashed. I don't know why I thought Ethan didn't spend any time at camp, but it says he was one of the undetermined kids in the Hermes cabin. Annabeth recognizes him, and she says like, why did you change sides? And all he says is, there is no right side. The gods never cared about us. Why shouldn't I? And then she gets cut off, or he gets cut off by Annabeth saying, sign up with an army that makes you fight to the death for entertainment? Gee, I wonder. And does he reveal then who his parent is?
He
Not
does later if he
yeah.
doesn't do it right now. Um,
But
but I
yeah,
know for like right now, he's basically saying like the gods have never done anything for me. I think he says that to Percy later on, but um, that's the stuff that I think is interesting because that's such black and white thinking of like the you're with me or against me sort of thoughts of like whenever somebody says like the gods never did anything for me and it's like yeah but like who cares like and I don't mean to like be dismissive of that but it's like when people say like oh the government's never done anything for me so I'm not going to vote in this election or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's like, you're like missing the point of why people do these things.
yes,
Like joining Luke's team, you're actively turning your back on the people like you.
yeah,
And that's the reason why you shouldn't do that. It has nothing to do with the gods. Who cares about them? They're assholes to everybody. What about people like this? What about the people that you were spent every day at camp with? Those are the people that you should think about, not the gods.
yeah.
And him saying that is like, yeah, obviously Luke, and probably Luke is good at being manipulative,
Mm-hmm.
and probably used, especially if he was a kid in the Hermes cabin, he probably looked up to Luke when he was at camp.
Yeah,
And so, if you hear something a bunch of times said by someone who's manipulative, you're just gonna like regurgitate it the same way that MAGA people do.
exactly.
It's literally the same thing. Of him saying like, "Oh, the gods never cared about me," is the same thing that those people say, because they're the same people.
Well, and, okay, so another thing that is revealed here is Ethan's injured eye happened at some point between camp and now. So we know it happened under Luke's charge. And he doesn't seem willing to talk about it. It's just kind of like a fact that they throw in here. And what he says before he runs off, because he decides not to join the group here, is you shouldn't have scared me, Jackson. Mercy has no place in this war. And that idea comes up a couple times with him. It comes up again later, but it's very clear he's been brainwashed in a way that works for him, and we find out it worked later. I'll just say it because Nemesis is his mother, and so he doesn't have a main god, so to speak, as his parent, and thus like there's not really even a spot for him at camp when you think about it.
Nope. And Luke is not the one that took his eye. His mom did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so that's like the whole thing of that. That comes up at some point. Probably not in this book, although I'm not sure. I think that might come up in the next one when he's talking about that sort of why he doesn't have an eye and stuff like that. But that, yeah, it makes sense that he would say that with someone like Nemesis as his mom, and feeling like he literally doesn't have a cabin
Mm-hmm.
at camp, which is why he's such an interesting character, because what is somebody like him supposed to do?
Yeah.
And that does come into play with him and Percy with their conversations, especially in the last Olympian of like where was he supposed to go? The gods didn't give him a place to stay at camp. He knows who his parent is, but he still has to stay in the Hermes cabin because they never built a freaking place for his mom because they don't think his mom is important enough.
Exactly.
That's one of those things that changes after the last Olympian is done. They build all those cabins for the lesser known gods after that because of him. And so yeah, he's such an interesting character because of that. It's like one of those things of he realizes that, I think honestly, even in these chapters, that he somewhat understands that like this isn't a good idea what I'm doing, but I don't think he feels like he has another option.
Yeah.
Because where else is he supposed to go? He
Yeah.
doesn't have another place to go.
So Ethan takes off, and then Annabeth, Rachel, and Percy make camp literally right there because they're so tired they can't move. And we get back and forth between, well, it's not even back and forth because it's mostly Annabeth being kind of a bitch to Rachel.
Yeah, when I was reading this part, I was like, Annabeth is being a bitch. Like,
well,
that's all I kept thinking.
Because Percy notices Rachel became super quiet after they left. She's literally, well, I wouldn't say never had to deal with this because of the Hoover Dam. Like, she saw Percy get attacked there, but he seemed to have been handling it there. This was the first time she saw him get attacked and didn't, well, also the beginning of the book. But yeah, this is the first time where it seemed like he did not have a plan. And it's like, how
and also, like, she was in danger. She's just a normal girl.
Exactly.
And the note I made about this part was Annabeth is being nicer to Luke than Rachel.
Yeah, and Annabeth's doing flip-flopping here because she told Ethan, you know, like, they literally put you in this ring for entertainment. What are you doing? And does she say Luke exactly? I think
she's like, they're talking about.
But she's starting to say things about Luke in this book.
Yeah, so she's like trying to like defend him still in this part. And while she's like digging at Rachel, like she keeps saying like, you know, you brought us into a trap, and she's basically acting like it was Rachel's fault that all of that happened. And it's like, she's immortal. She's never seen any of this stuff before. She was almost killed. She's terrified. You know that about her. And you are treating her like this. You're being absolutely terrible to her. And this is like one of those things I try to say about like grooming makes you a bad person. This is how grooming makes you be an absolutely terrible person. Yeah. She is treating Rachel so bad because of some perceived jealousy over Percy, while she's defending Luke still. And this entire book, they're trying to stop him from murdering everyone they've ever met. And she's like still trying to be like, oh, he can still be saved, or he's being controlled by Kronos, or whatever. And it's like, but you're being a hard ass to this mortal girl who has done nothing but try to help you.
Yeah, it's all over the jealousy with Percy, but like I will say, Annabeth, as these chapters go on, she's starting to acknowledge what Luke is now, but it's not enough yet. It's not enough because she still thinks he can be saved despite that. So she'll say things like, Luke wants all of the demigods gone, but she won't actually think like, and he is not savable. You know, like she won't get to the next step for a bit here. And poor Rachel, like this is the thing that came to mind for me, because as Percy's thinking, like, she got quieter, I don't know what's going on with her, and Annabeth's just yelling at her. She's burning a stick in the fire, and then she uses it to draw the exact likeness of a Dracaeni, and we know she's an artsy girl. This girl was probably processing her trauma of seeing all of these monsters by drawing them and getting better and better at drawing them so she could tell people what she was seeing, and they would still be like, you're crazy, you know? Mm-hmm. That's like...
And it's just the part, too, that I wanted to bring up, especially since Sky just added into my chat again, because we were talking about this the other day, was this part when Annabeth is like, oh, I guess I'll you know, go out and, like, stand guard so the two of you can talk to, like, Percy and Rachel. And Rachel says something to Percy about, like, do you really not know why she's acting like that? And he's like, will you just leave me alone? Sky and me the other day were talking about how Percy will people believe me when I say Percy does not see romance as an option. It is not an option. When your life is a traumatic event, that never ends, being interested in somebody romantically and thinking about it is a privilege. It does not occur to you that people could feel that way about you. I can't even count the amount of times that people have been like, that person was flirting with you. And I was like, get them away from me. But like, to this day, it does not occur to me that anyone could feel that way about me. That is a privilege that I have never had in my life. It is a privilege when you do not know what it's like to be safe, to have the space and time to figure out who you are as a person without people trying to kill you because of who you are. He does not understand why Annabeth is doing this because he does not think it is capable for her to love him. He doesn't think that about anyone, especially somebody like Annabeth, who is a good person. He doesn't think it's possible for her to feel that way about him. And so all of these people bringing this up to him is just throwing it in your face. That, like, they can think about romance because they've had a chance to figure this out in their life, but he can't. He can't. When is he supposed to do that? People are constantly trying to kill him, and it's up to him to save everybody. Like, he does not have the chance to do any of this ever in his life. And so it's ridiculous that people are, like, thinking he's just oblivious. And, like, if by oblivious you mean that his life is so traumatic that he's never had the time to think about himself for longer than 3 seconds, because he genuinely does not have the time, I don't know what else to say than that. Like, he does not think about that. It does not occur to him ever.
Yeah, and so Annabeth, yeah, she goes off, she leaves them, they start talking, and Percy also is not recognizing that Rachel may have feelings for him as well, because she sounds close to crying at one point, and he's like, "Hey, I'm usually about to die. It's fine. This is normal for me." And he has to tell her, like, I'm used to this. And
that's one of those comments. In every single book, he says something about, like, well, I might be dead soon, so
yeah,
who cares? Like, in Titan's Curse, he's thinking about how he's hungry, and he's like, well, I might be dead soon anyway, so who cares if I'm hungry?
Yeah.
And Sky said in my chat that's Leo is a character in the next series of books, and that he's very similar to that too. He's a foster kid.
Yeah.
That was put into many different foster situations and just, like, never found, like, a place to live. And that is why Calypso is able to manipulate him and get him to give up his entire life to get her off the island. Because he has that going on too. And for him, the way that it happens is, like, opposite of Percy, where he likes the idea of, like, rescuing her. And so he immediately just, like, jumps into that role because he likes being needed that way. For Percy, he has friends at home that he wants to do that for, and so he has to leave her island so that he can go back and help those people at home. But Leo doesn't have those same connections because his sense of humor kind of pushes people away. And so the way he wants to do it, and also because he has some, like, misogynistic ideas about girls, like, he likes the idea of rescuing her.
Yeah.
And so that's why that happens. But yeah, and Percy's just casually making jokes about, like, yeah, I'm always in danger of dying. So don't feel bad about it this time because it happens all the time. And she's just sitting there like,
what? Yeah.
what? And that, like, because when people don't live the life that you live and you hear them they say stuff like that, they are like that. Like, I remember an old coworker of mine from, like, years ago once messaged me a couple years ago saying, like, I'm really sorry that you're going through this, like, hard time. And I told her, like, I have been going through something since I was born. I've never not been going through something. It's just another thing at this point. I don't even remember what she was talking about when she said that to me a couple years ago. It could have been anything. But I told her, like, it's never stopped. So it's just, there's always something.
There's always something. And so, yeah, Percy and Rachel talk for a second until Percy starts asking about Rachel's family. He's like, you said your family's not even going to know on what's up with that. And she just kind of is like, I'm tired. I'm going to go now. And she, like, he says, I could sense her mental shields going up. So, like, he clearly sees it's not something she wants to talk about. And yeah, so she's also keeping him at arm's length at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And basically, he has a when he's asleep, he has a dream about Tyson and Grover
Well,
being
first
in.
is Kronos, and
Oh yeah.
this one was a little weird for me because it's like Kronos is actually talking to him directly for once. Usually in dreams, he gets like little glimpses of what Kronos is doing. But in this one, Kronos says, I have so much to thank you for. You have assured my rise. So, you know what? I'll let you see your friends. And that's when he sees Grover and Tyson, who have been on their own in the tunnel, or in the labyrinth, in a tunnel in the labyrinth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Kronos just says like the absolute worst thing at any given time.
Yes, he always does. And so what Percy sees is they're getting attacked by a giant snake. And we do find out this dream was real. It wasn't Kronos trying to trick him like your friends are in danger. Um, but yeah, Tyson and Grover are trying to fight this thing off. Tyson's locked up by the snake. Grover's trying to use his reed pipes to make stalactites fall on it and stuff. And he has no idea how that ends, but all of a sudden feels rumbling, and he wakes up, and it's an actual earthquake. Annabeth's waking him up, and she's telling him like, "You gotta go," even though he's waking up, and he's like, "Tyson, Tyson," and so he wakes up Rachel, and the three of them take off running. Now, as they're taking off running, Annabeth once again is like, I don't think we're going the right way. This doesn't feel like it's getting older. And like, so Rachel's still leading them. She's like, no, I'm pretty sure that this is it. And they come up to these metal double doors that have a delta on them. And it's pretty apparent, like, this is the place. And you know, Percy says, I think he even says something like, so much for ancient architecture. And does Annabeth really think an inventor is never going to upgrade their studio? You know, like, that's what I got from that. Like, this guy has been an inventor for centuries, and like, I realized that they think he's dead and not dead simultaneously at the same time somehow. But you really think he wouldn't keep inventing? Like,
Or like
yeah,
you wouldn't think it's just like such like a it's such like an autistic way of thinking
yeah,
of like, oh, Daedalus was alive during Roman times, so he must be somewhere that looks Roman.
yeah.
And it's like, or he could be anywhere because he's inside a maze that is constantly changing. And why would he stay in the same place all the time if he can move? And it's just funny how she just like cannot get over the like need to make this maze be logical when it's absolutely not. And that's like the point of it, is that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't do what you think it should do. It like otherwise people would have a much easier time finding him if
Yeah.
all they had to do was find him in a place that looks like a time that he would live in.
Yeah, so they see the studio first. They see like his little inventing studio. He has all of these sketches around and stuff. But then Quintus shows up, and that's where we find out Quintus is Daedalus. Quintus has been Daedalus this whole time. And they're like, why are you going by Quintus? What does Quintus mean? It means fifth in Latin. So this is his fifth body he's on. And let's see. So I'm trying to think where to go next from here. They don't believe him at first, but he shows them a mark on his neck, and it is the mark of Perdix, essentially. It's a partridge. I don't remember if I said this on the pod, but like, partridges are birds that stay low to the ground, and the fact that there was a flying incident with Perdix, that's the connection. So things in the Perdix genus, like quail, like partridges, are birds that like to stay closer to the ground. It's just kind of interesting that has a mythological connection to me. But anyways, so we find out his mother is Athena, that he wanted to help Percy because he was going to help Luke. Like, that was his reason for giving the Miss O'Leary whistle, was like, well, I like you, Percy, and I feel guilty. But Luke has promised me everything that I would ever want. And yeah.
Like, first, I guess the thing I'll start off by saying is that the first episode we did this in, I said that I couldn't remember why I hated like Quintus, but I knew that that's all I remembered, like, that I felt when I read him again was that I just hated him. And I'm like, oh, this is why I hate you. I
Yeah.
was pretty sure that he was Daedalus, but I didn't want to say that if I was remembering, if that wasn't right. Because why does Daedalus hate Minos? Because you were the most dismissive little bitch ever about the fact that you killed a child. You were literally like, I was in a bad mood that day,
Hmm.
and so I killed a child. And it's so horrible that the only thing that happens to me is that I have a tattoo on my body, so I can't forget that I killed a child because I was in a bad mood. Like, at least Minos like had a justifiable reason for why he killed your son. You had no reason to do that. And especially this part, I was like, you are definitely an Athena child in the way that they can be so unemotional, it's scary
Hmm.
by how they just take all emotion out of it and become basically like cold-blooded killers, like what I just said. But mainly about the fact that he says to their face, I went to spy on you at camp because I wanted to figure out if camp was something that I should save or if I should just help Luke murder you all. And I'm like, hold on. Like, can we go back a second? That this person has been alive for thousands of years and he needed to go and meet children at this camp that he knows are just innocent children to decide whether he's okay with all of them being slaughtered to death? Like, you had to go to camp to figure out if they deserve to live? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, what is wrong with you that you showed up at camp to watch them because you were trying to figure out if all of them were going to die? And then the worst part about this scene is that he's like, well, Luke got Ariadne's string, and so he was going to kill you all anyway, so I just like let him do it because I just decided like there's no way that you guys could ever stop him. And so instead of actually trying at all to help children not get massacred, I'm going to do nothing, act like I am helpless to this happening, and make it easier for them all to be murdered.
Well, and he was, for somebody who's so old, he was so easy to manipulate. So what he says is, Kronos promised me freedom. Once Hades is overthrown, he will set me over the underworld. I will reclaim my son Icarus. I will make things right with poor young Perdix. I will see Minos' soul cast into Tartarus where it cannot bother me again, and I'll no longer have to run from death because he's been running from death since Minos is judge of the dead. Now, that, yeah, that's everything he would want to hear, right? And when you hear everything you want to hear from somebody, you should be a little bit skeptical. Like, unless it's my husband telling me he's going to give me everything I want, he's going to take me to In-N-Out, and then he's going to take me to go get dessert, I'm not trusting it, you know?
And also, like, if the only way you can get what you want is by a bunch of innocent children being killed,
Yes. Well, and
maybe
this
you
is what
shouldn't get it.
Annabeth says, and this is where Annabeth has one of those moments where she's realizing who Luke is, because she says, that's your brilliant idea. You're going to let Luke destroy our camp, kill hundreds of demigods, and then attack Olympus. She says Luke, not Kronos here.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is one of those moments where she's seeing things clearly because she's mad at him, but then she wavers again afterwards, and it's like, girlie, you're so close.
That's why it's so frustrating when you're dealing with somebody like her that's being like harmed by somebody else, because they have those moments of like clarity and then they go back on them and you just want to shake them and be like, can't you just like stay in this place and realize what's going on instead of trying to convince yourself that they're somehow redeemable or they're not that bad or you can still save them somehow. Like, give it up.
Yes.
Fine, for the love of God.
And it gets given up so quickly because then Kelly bursts in. Kelly, the Impuza, and some Lystragonians. They have Nico hostage at this point. And so it turns out that Nico also got manipulated. He got tricked by Minos saying, Percy needs your help. Go save him. And they were really just delivering Nico to Luke's people and stuff. So,
Poor
um,
sweetheart.
and because Minos is involved in this, Quintus slash Daedalus finds out right away. We never intended, like you're no longer useful. You gave us the string, so we're not gonna follow through on our promise. And
Why would we? What genuinely? Why would they do that?
yeah, and so the kids all end up having to escape because it's madness. We have monsters fighting all of them. We have Nico banishing Minos back to Hades and all of the undead soldiers that Minos tries to bring back to him. And Daedalus ends up staying behind because he doesn't want to leave Miss O'Leary, which I can give you that, man. At least you didn't want your dog to die, but like
Yeah.
everything
And they
else
just
about
literally
the
all jump on the wings as Percy's flying away. And
Yes.
it's like,
So the wings came up earlier as they were looking around his room because they noticed like, oh, these wings are really cool. And Annabeth and Rachel, it's like one of the first moments where they kind of both can appreciate something because art and architecture are like hand in hand. So these wings are more like they're better constructed than the ones that Icarus and Daedalus fled to Crete with. But yeah, so next chapter they do have to fly on those wings. Annabeth has to kind of instruct them because she's, of course, as an Athena kid, she would get it. She's like, you have to glide, like arms out. And Percy figures it out. He figures out how to swoop and all of that. But they don't stay on the wings for long because they don't know how reliable they are. Which is also good considering because like the sky is Zeus's territory. This comes up later because Percy has to tell Rachel, we can't just go on a plane back to camp because I can't go in the sky.
that would be really bad. But, one thing I wanted to mention too about Luke's overall plan that I
Yeah.
realized reading Daedalus talk about what he wanted to do. His, like, for people who say that, like, Luke is, like, waffling or whatever in this book, his plan is the same from Sea of Monsters on. And it's always take out camp and then take out Olympus. Every single book, that is the only plan he ever has. He just tries different ways to do the same plan.
Yeah.
So in Sea of Monsters, it basically starts off with Percy dies or doesn't die in the first book, and so he has to actually do things faster with camp because he can't pretend like he's not doing what he's doing anymore because he told everybody. And so in Sea of Monsters, he tries to take out Thalia's tree to take out camp so that they can go to Olympus and kill all the gods. In Titan's Curse, he kidnaps Annabeth so that they can kill everybody there and or get Annabeth to turn with him so that Annabeth, because Annabeth in the end of Titan's Curse is try to convince them to let her bring Luke to Mount Olympus the only day of the entire year during winter solstice when every single god is all there. So in Titan's Curse, he kidnaps Annabeth and manipulates her to convince her to willingly bring him to Mount Olympus so that he can kill all of the gods. And then in this book, it's the same thing. He's spending the whole book trying to find something so he can go back to camp and kill the gods, kill the kids, and then kill the gods. And in the fifth book, it's the same thing. Taking out camp and then killing the gods. That is the only plan he ever has. Even like the part where we get to the horrendous scene with him, like the role that Ethan plays, he has somebody in mind for that role every single book he's trying to convince to do it for him.
Yep.
Thalia and Annabeth. And it just ends up being Ethan. But he has the same plan for years. It never changes. He just does it, tries to make it happen in different ways.
Exactly.
He doesn't get better. He just gets worse. So this part was fun because of Rachel.
Yeah.
That Rachel, knowing that Rachel's
Yeah.
is that her dad is like an extremely rich person. She just goes up to like the part that I thought was funny was that she like didn't want Percy to be there to see her do it to like pull rank basically. And so she like has him stay back so that she doesn't have to, so he doesn't have to hear her be like, I'm a rich, very rich person.
Yeah.
And so she basically just yells at this random chauffeur and it makes them take them instead of who he's actually supposed to be helping get around, because she
Yeah.
just brings up her dad. It's like if Elon Musk's kids showed up and was like, Elon would be upset at you if you don't do this thing for me, and I'll pay you a bunch of money if you take me instead. And they would automatically just be like, okay. And that's basically what that guy does. It was just so funny that he does that for them, and they get in the car and they're just like randomly driving around.
Yes.
Because I guess the thing to remember about this part too is that they Percy knew this already, sort of, because he had a dream about this before he went to Calypso's island,
Mhm.
that Luke has what he needs in order to find camp. And like, I can't state enough how much I hate the fact that not only did Kronos tell tell Percy that, like, that is basically because of him somehow, even though he doesn't know what that means yet, that this is about to happen, but he also is thinking like, I killed that guy, the guy that they just ran away from, and I basically made it easy for Luke because the only thing that was stopping him, because he has the string, was getting through the arena. I killed the guy in charge of the arena,
Yeah.
and so now there's nothing stopping him from going to camp. And so they're just trying to find a way to get back into the maze and get to camp before everybody is dead.
Yes, they're driving around Colorado because Daedalus's workshop was overseeing Colorado Springs, that the Garden of the Gods, which I don't think that that's a mythological place, but I'm not sure.
I think that might just be a thing in Colorado because Colorado's pretty,
Yeah, because
honestly.
Colorado is pretty. So they're driving around Colorado, and eventually they find a delta. You know, they find their little symbol that they're near the labyrinth again. Let's see, and it's in the Western Museum of Mining and Industry, which makes a lot of sense considering who Daedalus is. Um, so then they get back into the tunnel. I think we kind of glossed over Nico. So Nico was involved. Kelly the Impuza brought Nico in during the whole chaos in Daedalus's workshop. And Nico had said he was manipulated to come save Percy. He's still with them at this point. And so we have Rachel and Annabeth starting to actually get along somewhat because they're talking about architecture and art and the intersection of that. Nico and Percy are kind of like hanging behind, and Percy finally breaks the silence and realizes that when Minos was convincing Nico a soul for a soul, he was trying to convince him Daedalus's soul.
And the other thing from Percy and Nico that I of course loved is when just how Percy is, that when Nico showed up, like the first thing he asked him before they even left Daedalus's place was, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because he's an 11-year-old child, and that's what you should be asking kids, if they're okay when they're being held captive by somebody that's trying to kill them. I appreciate Percy being one of the only people in this book series to remember that about children. But yeah, he's just trying to talk to him and have some kind of, I don't know, some sort of like truce, basically,
Yes.
to see how Nico feels about him now, and realizing that that's what he told him would happen. And Nico, like, realizing when he says it out loud how, kind of silly almost he was to want to believe that. But at least when it comes to Nico, he's a traumatized, grief-stricken, literal 6th grade child.
Yes.
And so for him to believe it, it honestly makes a lot of sense for him to want to believe that, and to not realize that it's not going to work out the way he wanted, because he just wanted to have his sister back. That's
Well,
a very valid
Percy has this
thing.
moment where he understands why Nico didn't ever try to fit in at camp, and it's because Nico's like, why would anyone ever accept me? And Percy sits there and thinks about it. He says, the truth was, I didn't know. Nico had always been a little different, but since Bianca's death, he'd gotten almost scary. He had his father's eyes that were intense, and that intense manic fire that you suspect he was either a genius or a madman. And the way he banished Minos and called himself King of Ghosts, it was impressive, but it made me uncomfortable too.
Mm-hmm.
And
The thing about that I wanted to make a point of is Percy saying that seeing him do that made him uncomfortable. I feel like people read that and they think that Nico himself is making him uncomfortable. It's not that. It's that he's an 11-year-old child who has like decided that being king of the dead is his entire like worth and identity, and that this little kid who he was just taking care of like 6 months ago in this book, like Titan's Curse happens in December and this is like August. And so it was only a couple months ago that Nico was like playing with mythomagic cards and was this cute little kid that he was talking to. And so when Percy says that it makes him uncomfortable, it's not like because he thinks that Nico makes him uncomfortable or he doesn't want Nico to be around him or something like that. It makes him uncomfortable in the way that Nico had to like make his powers with Hades his entire like sort of being because he was homeless. Yes. And he was on like homeless by himself for months on end. He had to do that to protect himself. And that's what is making him more uncomfortable, not like Nico himself. He loves the baby child and just wants to help him and wants to bring him back to camp because people at camp would like him if he let them get to know him. But he's more uncomfortable about the fact that Nico is so like doing that stuff when he's so little and isn't like really thinking about the stuff that he's doing or anything like that. He just does it because he feels like that's what he has to do. And it's just like so sure that nobody would like him when there's no way he could know that.
So at this point, they come across a smell that Percy recognizes. It's funny, like if you watch me reading this, I recognized what it was immediately. I was like, oh, he's near Mount Town. Because he's like, I smelled something vaguely familiar, something that brought back bad memories, eucalyptus trees, like in California. And on almost every hike in the Bay Area, you'll find eucalyptus. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure eucalyptus is not native. But for whatever reason, Bay Area hikes are crazy filled with eucalyptus. It's one of the many plants like oak trees and what else do we have a lot of? Bay laurel. The eucalyptus, immediately I was able to place it. I was like, oh shoot, he's near Mount Orthus. Like he's near Mount Town. Oh no. And he decides to go out of the tunnel when he realizes that they're close. Everybody tries to keep him from going. And eventually they kind of resign to he's going to go anyway. And Annabeth hands him her cap.
Yeah. Like you get it. Like they're trying to get back to camp before Luke kills everybody. He wants to be like, maybe I can figure out where he is or what he's doing so that we can try to stop him before he gets there. And so he runs up there wearing the hat and
really quick, so he doesn't want Annabeth to go. He says this specifically. I didn't trust what she would do if she saw Luke again.
And that's a very accurate statement.
Yes.
Like, she was ready, like I said earlier, she was like trying to convince the other kids to bring Luke to Mount Olympus at the end of Titan's Curse. Yeah. It does not matter that Annabeth is an intelligent person when it comes to like academics. Luke can manipulate her so easily. And if she was talking to him, he would somehow convince her to do anything. And so she can't be there because that's an accurate thing. She would somehow just give in to whatever he wanted. Even if she didn't think she was going to, she just keeps doing it. Even when he's not there, she like changes her mind about him. And so like that's good on Percy to realize that and not.
I also want to talk about the kiss really quick because there's a throwaway line that I'm sure people ignore. So she hands him the cap and he says thanks, and then he says, I remembered the last time Annabeth and I parted ways when she'd given me a kiss for luck. That's what he interpreted the kiss as, a kiss for luck. Not this is you revealing your feelings to me after so long. This is you kissing me for good luck because you know I have no plans.
Yeah, and so I don't a good luck thing so I don't die.
Yeah.
That's all that he thought that was. And so, God, this part.
Yes.
So he goes in, and what are they called? The Telekine are there, and they've made Kronos' scary weapon thing, and they're talking about how excited they are about it. And so they're talking to Ethan, because Ethan is there, and this is something that I realized when I was rereading this that I desperately need to explain to people, because it's one of those things that can be like generally debunked that I've seen people discuss. Because what they're basically telling Ethan is that in order for Kronos to completely come back, they need a demigod half-blood to basically like devote themselves to him. And then if they did that, then that's the thing that makes him come back in Luke's body. And
Like,
so when you
be the one to present the sickle as like part of the ritual kind of thing.
yeah. And so like when you look at Luke's plan for all those years, like I was mentioning, he was always trying to convince someone to come with him. Like at first it was Percy, then it was Thalia basically, then it was Annabeth. And so one of the things that I've seen people say about him showing up at Annabeth's house when she's at her dad's is like when he says like, I want to run away from Kronos, come and run away with me, is they see that as like, oh, he wants to leave and he's realizing that things have gone too far and he feels like regret. He wanted Annabeth to do this.
Probably, yeah.
He wanted Annabeth to be the one to devote herself to him because she would have.
I hope they put that in the show. I hope they put that in the show just for those people.
That is absolutely why he did that. He showed up at Annabeth's house because there's no way he was going to leave Kronos. Kronos was already like a huge part in his body. He could not leave Kronos. That was never why he was there. He was trying to get her to come with this entire time. He's been trying to find somebody that will like devote himself like that to them so that they could bring Kronos back. That's what he was trying to do. He was trying to get Annabeth to be the person that would do it. And if he talked to her long enough, she would have done it. Like, she would have absolutely done it. Yeah. And so it's, like, the only reason she doesn't do it is because Percy, like, stops her from being there. And, like, is able to, like, get her away from him, basically, long enough to kind of break that.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely why he was doing that stuff. And that is scary as fuck. And that's what he wants. He's not, like, run away with me, Annabeth, so we can be like romantic together. He wants her to devote himself to him, come back as Kronos, and then be like his creepy little like queen or whatever with him. But either way, Ethan does the thing, or like he starts to do the thing, and Percy, being Percy, reveals himself to be there because he's trying to save Ethan from doing this.
First, with the cap still on, Percy sees that he's alone in the room with the sarcophagus thing, with the coffin thing, and he tries to open it. That's what makes Ethan and the Telekines think, oh, Kronos must be ready. Now, Percy opens this coffin thinking he's going to see some mangled form, not knowing what to expect because he doesn't know what Kronos is at this point. But then he opens the coffin and the body is loose. And it's like missing a chunk in the heart. That is what Ethan's allegiance fills in, so to speak, is this chunk that's missing around his heart.
And this poor sweetheart that he's just staring there looking at Luke in the sarcophagus, and he's generally just like dumbfounded in the way of like, why is Luke in there?
Yeah.
Why does he look like he's already dead? What is going on? How is he like this? I thought that Kronos was in here, but this is Luke? Like, what, and he tries to get it together enough to, stab him because he's like, that's what I should do, right? I should kill him so that he can't come back. But he can't do it because it's Luke.
Yep.
And even though he knows that it's not that he thinks that Luke can be saved at all. He doesn't think that, but it's a very different thing to, I like the reminder by how he, even though he knows that Luke is horrible and they need to stop him, that he can't do it before people start coming in, and he can't do it anymore because it's supposed to be hard to kill people.
It should be. Yeah.
It's supposed to be really, really hard to kill people, especially people that you know. Even if you think that they're just going to hurt people, it's supposed to be the hardest thing you could possibly ever imagine doing. And he, even though he knows that if he doesn't take out Luke right now, all these people, innocent kids, are going to die, that he cares about, he still can't do it because it's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be as easy as Luke does it. It's not supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be really difficult to do that when you actually care about other people.
Yes.
And so he's just freaked out, as anyone would be, by seeing that, and then tries to stop Ethan from doing it. And Ethan says the stuff about how his mom is Nemesis and he didn't have like a place at camp, and he says like, oh, the gods never tried to help me or did anything for me, which is like we said before, is missing the point of what they're really trying to do here. But he's not able to. But I always love Percy for doing this stuff to try to help any demigod, which is why I always say that he doesn't care about the gods. The only people he cares about are his own people. He's willing to do whatever to save any demigod, even from themselves, like with Ethan in this situation.
Yeah.
And he tries everything he can. It doesn't work. And then Kronos / Luke like comes back, and he's just sitting there like, what do I do? And the only thing he can think of is like try to run away, because everything people have told him before, like I think Chiron has mentioned to him before that if you fight like Kronos, you're not going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, I need to run. But Kronos has time powers.
Yes.
And so he physically cannot run from him because he's controlling time where he can't move.
Well, and so Kronos is saying some things to Percy here. Luke feared you. His jealousy and the hatred have been powerful tools. It kept him obedient. For that, I thank you. And like, this is him talking about how well prepared Luke's body has been to host him. Mm-hmm. But like, luckily, while Kronos is trying to hold Percy captive with time, Rachel, Annabeth, and Nico had decided we're not just going to leave Percy. You know, we got to figure out what's happening. And all of a sudden, a blue hairbrush whacks Kronos in the face, and they hear Luke's voice say "ouch." But like it's
like that, he never expected that to happen, so it surprised him. Where it was just Luke talking, and they are able to run out. But the thing that Kronos said, oh my god. It's we talk about how this book series overall uses like golden child and scapegoat roles to do things. Mm-hmm. My sister was played like a fiddle by my dad by making her hate me when we were growing up, by like feeding that jealousy. It was so easy to get her to do whatever with him against me, because he would just talk that up, and she was so wanting to like, you know, get like acceptance or whatever from him, that she would just do all that stuff. That's what Kronos is talking about. Yeah. That he used the idea that Luke would be jealous of Percy is, I'm sure, something that Percy never once in his life has ever considered. And so he, like, I've seen people bring this up before, but like the fact that like the place that Kronos' army is on is a ship. And the fact that the ship is called the Queen Andromeda, and Andromeda is somebody that is attached to Perseus. Like, everything around where he is reminds Luke that Kronos actually wanted Percy. And he's actively telling us he did that on purpose, because he knew that if he, like, made him more angry and jealous and thinking that Kronos never really wanted him, he always wanted this other kid the entire time, that it would make things accelerate faster. And so it's not even like a thing that like Kronos actually wanted Percy, because either way he won. It was more like he knew if he made it look like he wanted Percy, that Luke would never be satisfied or happy with what he had, so he would always be working to try to impress him more and more and more, and he doesn't even understand what he's done.
Yeah.
Like this scene after finished reading the chapters, I just like cried because I was like, Luke just gave up his entire life, his
Mm-hmm.
entire being, his entire life to this other thing. He doesn't even understand what he's done. He generally does not understand that he gave up his entire existence to just like revenge and anger, and like everyone else is devastated because of what happened to him, and he probably wouldn't even understand why they were upset.
Yes.
And I will say that when it comes to like my own family stuff, like this is something that happens, and like part of the frustration I feel about how the fandom tries to always downplay the stuff that Luke does is that we can't really talk about this kind of stuff very much because I don't want to give them anything to like do that kind of thing. But it is like really, really sad that Luke does this. It's really, really sad. And it's really sad that he never a single day in his life ever figured out how to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even try. He just like gave in to just like overrunning anger at every point in his life so early on. And like it reminds me of my own dad that like I know for a fact my dad was never happy a single day in his entire life. He was never happy. And even if he was a horrible monster like Luke has turned into that, it does make me sad that my dad never had any sort of happiness really. That he only had happiness for like a tiny bits of time. And other than that, that's just sad to think that somebody spent their entire life, everything they did just never made them happy. And they, at a certain point, by the time that he was like 40, he had given up on the idea that he was ever going to find happiness and instead just started taking things out on other people like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, that's just depressing to think that somebody never, ever, never once found anything that made him happy and want to live for.
Yes.
And that's Luke, and that is really, really sad. But also me saying that doesn't mean that he isn't an evil person for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's part of when we were talking about Calypso earlier, that's part of the thing with her where people are like, oh, well, she's like, you know, like an innocent kid or like doesn't understand what she's doing. And it's like, yeah, really abusive people have very simple needs that they're trying to get met. It doesn't matter. They're still like Donald Trump does what he does because his daddy never loved him. Like legitimately, his dad was like my dad. I have heard stories about Donald Trump's childhood. It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like without the sexual abuse, other than that, it was the same. His dad was a tyrant, very violent, angry person. Like I heard a story recently that he never eats mashed potatoes because his dad once dumped an entire thing of mashed potatoes over his head in front of his entire family when they were having dinner, when he was a little kid. Everything that Donald Trump does is because his dad didn't love him. It does not matter. It does not matter that the thing that they want is simple, because the most like horrible people have a very simple thing that they're trying to get. They're just willing to do anything in order to get it.
Yes.
And either way, this part is just horrifying of it, that he did that Percy had to see it, that he feels like he should have killed him, but he couldn't do it. Ethan has no idea what he's doing, but he's somehow involved in all of this stuff, and you just want him to realize what's going on so he can get away from Luke before he kills him for good. Like, Nico is there, like, trying to protect him, and Percy's telling him, like, they're going to realize that you're a son of Hades now, and Nico is still so protected from, like, the rest of the overall world, because they've been trying to protect him, that he doesn't understand how much danger he's in right now, and what Luke would do to him.
Yeah.
Especially this version of Luke that is completely just rage, and has nothing else there.
Yeah.
Oh god. The next scene is the part that like made me really upset, where I generally don't really remember reading the ending chapter with Pan because Annabeth made me so upset.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know that I'm triggered right now, but this isn't going to end anytime soon, and so I'm just going to try to finish these chapters so I'm done reading now and I can like sit here and listen to music and be sad because
Yeah,
the way, like, you
lots of-
understand why she is so upset. Like, that's not why I say that, or like why I say that I'm upset or whatever. Like, Annabeth is, like, she's being manipulated by Luke. She doesn't want to give up the idea that there's something there that she can fix him.
Mhm.
Literally, that trope that I can fix him, that I can save him. And she knows that Percy has a prophecy where he's supposed to die, and Luke is the one that's supposed to kill him. And
Yes.
so now Luke has turned completely into Kronos, and so the chance that she had to try to stop that from happening is less likely to happen. She knows that. That's a really difficult thing to know, but you can admit, because this is a complex situation, that her crying makes a lot of sense. But her taking out being upset on Percy is really horrible, because that's what actually happens in real life.
Yeah.
Um,
So what happens is she really points out that when Rachel hit him in the face with the brush, that it sounded like Luke's voice that said "ow." It didn't sound like the Kronos Luke combo voice.
yeah.
Um, so Percy responds, "So maybe Kronos wasn't completely settled in the body or whatever. It doesn't mean Luke was in control." And she's just still like, "No, but he's in there. He's in there.
No.
You want him to be evil." She says that to Percy. You want
Yeah.
him to be evil, don't you?
And the thing I wrote in my notes in caps lock is, I'm pretty sure Percy wants Luke to be good so he stops trying to kill him.
Yes.
Like, but that is the kind of stuff that people say to you. Like for people who think that Luke is not, like, grooming her, this is literally a domestic violent relationship. Like, this is, like, verbatim the things that people say. Of her being like, oh, well, he sounded like himself for a couple seconds, so maybe he's somehow in there. Maybe I should go after him, and maybe I can somehow save him, or there's something in there of, like, the person that I remember that I can somehow bring back and stop this whole thing from happening. You can never save them.
Yeah. Like,
You
well,
can never save them. You will never save them.
the one relationship that I had been in, because one thing, like, I talk about all these boyfriends, most of them were when I was teenagers. I've been with Jake since I was 19. So, but like my boyfriend before him, it got very toxic because he had cheated on me and there was emotional stuff back and forth. But what kept me holding on, those, like, I stayed with him over a year, almost 2 years after he cheated on me, and it was very much like, oh, maybe things can get good again. Maybe things could be like they were in the beginning. Maybe he'll be crazy about me if I just do this, or if I just make sure he never ever is out of my sight, or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no fixing that situation at that point. I was never going to trust him fully again, and he, like, he had his own stuff to deal with. That kid was an adoptee. Was his mother had 2 children right after him. His abandonment issues were up the wazoo. And the part where he thought I was abandoning him that caused him to cheat in the first place wasn't me abandoning him. So, like, I can acknowledge that as an adult, but there was no way of saving that relationship. There was never going to be that. And sometimes you have to realize, even if things were good in the beginning, you gotta let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, it's just the fact that, like, what Percy said about Annabeth was obviously true, that she would be manipulated by him again, because all it took was that for her to, like, bring hope back.
Exactly.
And it's just overall the entire idea that this entire book, the entire reason that they're in the labyrinth is because they've been trying to beat him back to camp so he doesn't slaughter all of them. They are right now trying to find, the whole reason they even went in there in the first place was because they were trying to find a way to stop him before he kills everyone that they love. And even despite knowing that, she is still saying, like, maybe there's something in him that I can save, and is yelling at Percy and saying, like, you just want him to be evil. That's why you're telling me this. And it's like, he has tried to kill Percy 8 times now.
Mhm.
in the general story. Do you really think that Percy doesn't want Luke to be good? He tried to kill him when he was 12.
Yeah.
Like, either version, the TV show or the book version, he tries to kill him when he is a child that trusts him completely. That alone should have been enough to make you realize who he really is.
Mhm.
And much less all the other times that he's tried to kill him since then.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating that they like it's that feeling of like, why don't you care about me enough to like understand, like, why don't you care about how this is affecting me, that you can see how this person is hurting me? Like, why do you, the audacity
Yeah.
honestly, to say things like that to our face of like, you know what this person has done to me and you're saying to me like you just want him to be evil because it would make you happy. And it's like, he's been terrorizing and traumatizing me for years. I would rather him not be like this, but he is, because he keeps doing these things to me. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it's just such like the like scapegoat person experience that Annabeth says something like that to him.
Mhm.
And so this one time, this is the only time that I can remember him ever saying something back at her since the end of the first book about Luke. And the one thing he says to her is like, "Why are you still defending him?" That is an extremely valid question to be asking right now. He asks one thing, he says one thing, and right away Rachel is like, "Stop fighting, you guys." And it's like, are you kidding?
Yeah. They
Are
needed to
you
have this conversation books ago.
are you kidding me? The only thing he asks her is, "Why are you still defending that guy? Why am I having to sit there and explain to you that if you try to talk to him, he's going to kill you and or do something even worse to you? I'm trying to protect you from somebody who wants to kill you or do something sexually inappropriate to you. And you're yelling at me as if I'm the bad person because I'm trying to stop you from being harmed worse by this guy than you already have been.
Yeah.
But I'm somehow the bad guy because I'm trying to make you be safe. Like, how is this my life? Like, how is this somehow the role that I am playing?" And
So,
it happens all the time in real life. Like, my sister hated me. Like, legitimately hated me for many years. She's apologized about that somewhat since. But for when we were in high school, she hated me.
mhm.
And part of the reason why she hated me is because I hated my dad and I didn't want to see him anymore.
Mhm.
And she thought that I was a horrible person because I didn't want to spend any time with him. And that was at least part of why she hated me. She hated me for lots of other reasons too, but a lot of those reasons came from him because he would just talk about me to her. So
Because
it
after
was,
this conversation gets interrupted,
yeah,
that they find Grover's Rasta cap on the ground. And
yeah,
so they realize Grover has to be nearby. It looks like these footprints are fresh. Like, let's keep moving. And like they'd have no time to actually finish that conversation, which sucks
hmm,
because, like you said, it's the first time he's actually calling her out on that shit. Because usually he just swallows it and is like, "She's not ready. She's
it can
not
only
ready."
take that for so long before you finally just have to say something.
Yeah,
And so either way, they find finally Tyson and Grover, and they see that that they're generally okay.
yeah. Like Grover is knocked out, but we find out it's just like a stalactite fell on his head, and so they find out like the snake dream was real. That they've been through a few things on their own, but they're generally okay, as you said. One thing that I highlighted in this section is because Annabeth's jealousy is so out of hand. Tyson told Rachel she was pretty, which made Annabeth's nostrils flare like she was gonna blow fire. I was just like, really? You hated Tyson 2 books ago. Come on, girlie.
And also, like, weren't you just 3 minutes ago yelling at Percy about Luke? Can we just what is going on? Can we
Yes.
just saying that Rachel is pretty so she feels good about herself?
Yes. So we find out that like the smell of pan is unbearable where they are. Like that is part of why they think Grover might have passed out too. Is like maybe because this happened before when he was really close to Pan, he just like passed out. He was that excited. Um, So they realize that they are near the Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico
I've
because,
been there.
yeah, because they like that's New Mexico is around where last time Grover had this kind of reaction. They decide to follow to where Pan is, and he is real. Like he's been in this cave this whole time. Let's see. So we find out that Pan has been calling to Grover for real. He's been like, "You are one of the most dedicated people that's ever done this, so I want it to be you that finally releases me." Because gods don't necessarily die, they fade. And it's almost like it makes me think of, shoot, not Encanto. What's the other movie that came out before that that was about family trauma? Um, Also Hispanic themed. Um,
Coco?
Yes, Coco. Okay, so it's almost like that with Coco, where the relatives, it's like once they're not remembered, their picture's not on the ofrenda, and nobody talks about them anymore. Same thing happens with the gods. It's similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
And what really got to me reading this part, this whole section with Pan, so um, Rover, sorry, so when they get into Pan's little like den, he has extinct animals around him, and he's telling him like I've been dying. I've been dying. It's been this way for a long time, but because the satyrs hold out this hope that I'm going to come back and I'm going to save things, that like I just can't go. I need you to release me. And Nico is saying, like, yeah, he is dying. This isn't actually like Pan. This is kind of a memory type thing. Um, and Pan gives them this speech about how it's up to everybody now. Like, Pan used to mean rustic, now it means all. And so all of us have the power. And I got emotional reading this because, I'm definitely one of those I want to save the planet, but the planet might be too far gone people. Especially once I got more into fashion and started getting educated on the fashion world, because it's like the second highest contributor to global warming is us just manufacturing fucking clothes.
Yeah,
Fast
fast
fashion
fashion.
that goes straight into the dumps, So it's really hard, and I feel this so much more as an adult because I know that this hit me as a kid reading it too, but as an adult it hits so much harder because I know what Rick is trying to do here. A little bit more. He's trying to tell kids like we all have to take on this responsibility, and it sucks that we do because it's not even necessarily our fault. I'm one of those people that thinks that like yeah, individually we can recycle, we can try to limit our consumption and stuff, but the system is so broken that it's not us anymore. It's the manufacturers, it's
Mm-hmm.
the people shipping stuff overseas. It is the massive amounts of things that we produce that they don't consider what the end of life is for that product. And so we do have to be a little bit smarter. We do have to vote with our dollar. I hate that phrase, but it's like literally the only thing we can do to show these corporations we don't like the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pan just kind of this chapter is like one of the shorter ones in this one. His spirit floats away in a way where Percy's like, it's not scary like when I see blue spirit stuff with Kronos. He goes into us a little bit, but he goes into Grover the most.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see.
And basically, he tells Grover, like, tell the council what I said.
Mhm.
He gives each one of them, like, a
Oh
little.
yes, a prophecy, because that is one of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
So for Percy, he says, I know your doubts, but I give you this news. When the time comes, you will not be ruled by fear. And that, I'm guessing, has to do with the prophecy. It has to be when the time comes, actually, for the moment of the prophecy. You're not going to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I, like, that somewhat helps, but I could also see how that would not help at all. It's like, what's going to happen that makes me so sure? And he's going to be waiting for this big thing to happen to make him feel not afraid, but Yeah. And then to Annabeth, daughter of Athena, your time is coming. You will play a great role, though it may not be the role you imagined. He says to Tyson, Master Cyclops, do not despair. Heroes rarely live up to our expectations, but you, Tyson, you shall live among the Cyclopes for generations. And Miss Dare, I believe you cannot make. I know you believe you cannot make amends, but you are just as important as your father. And like this is the only hint of what her family life is that we've actually gotten because she just ducks out of the conversation every time it actually comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the chapter ends with Pan fading and with the animals turning to dust. And I don't know, I got emotional reading it because it really is just like so sad that it's on all of us that wild places are no longer wild. And even the places that are wild aren't being stewarded in the right way. I know that that's a conversation that happens with like national parks, especially.
Mm-hmm.
They're protected, as in people can't do stuff on them, but at the same time, native people used to work with these plants. They used to make sure that the plants were taken care of in a way that the land all prospered. And so having these protected areas where things just are 100% wild isn't exactly it, but also, you know, the amount that we have, like, why do some people have 4 or 5 houses and some people have zero? You know,
Mm-hmm.
why do we keep building so many buildings and so much more parking and getting so many more cars? Is it all really actually even necessary?
Nope.
Probably not, you know, and a lot of people aren't ready to face those things.
Mm-hmm. And it's just for us, it feels worse because people in charge right now are actively rolling those things back even worse than they were before.
Yeah.
And they already were not that great. But it is one of those things, it makes you feel very helpless that you could recycle every single day of your life, but an oil company that's drilling in the ocean is going to make global warming get worse every single year, no matter what you do. And it's just a very helpless feeling to know that unless those companies stop doing those things, there isn't, because they hurt the planet more than anything we could ever do. Like they basically told us to try to recycle as a way to keep us busy so that we wouldn't realize what they were really doing. Because they're the ones that are doing all of the damage, and if they stopped, the damage would stop. And they're so obsessed with money that none of the people in charge even care that they're killing the planet, and they can literally see it happening in front of us every single year. Like the weather changes,
Mhm.
and like it's so obvious that it's happening that even like right-leaning people don't really argue with about it all the time that it's happening.
Yeah.
They just argue about who can like fix it basically, but they still know that it's happening because weather has changed a lot since we were younger. Like it just has. Like where I live, our winter used to be a lot different, and it used to happen in different months of the year. Um, for some reason, it's been really windy the last couple months in the Midwest in a way that it usually isn't. There's thunderstorms tonight where a bunch of tornadoes happened in my state and a bunch of other states. That usually doesn't happen this time of year because it was 80 degrees today. That's why all those tornadoes happened here, but that's not normal at all. It was 50 degrees yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's going to go back to being 50 degrees for the rest of the week after today, but like that's just part of what life is like here now. Our winters are never like they used to be, and the summers, Canada sometimes is on fire, and so we can't go outside
Mhm.
because it's on fire, and I can't breathe when there's smoke outside.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people because of asthma. I can't breathe around smoke at all. It gives me like really bad chest pain, and so that one summer, not last summer or the summer before, I like even if I wanted to go outside, which I don't, in the summertime because I don't like hot weather. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't go outside. I would go outside for like 3 minutes and start coughing and have to go back in
Mhm.
because it was just like that for like months at a time here, and it was not at all like that before.
Yeah.
Because fires like that usually wouldn't happen in Canada that much, or if at all, because it wasn't hot enough, or like it rained more, so it wouldn't get that like dry where it would spread so fast.
Yeah, and like here in California, our springs, like as a kid, I remember us always saying that one saying April showers bring May flowers,
Hmm.
because it used to actually rain a lot in April. We got a little bit of rain this weekend. I swear it was drizzly and cloudy all weekend. Today, bright and sunny, 75 degrees out. And it's
Hmm.
just like such extremes. California tends to like our springs now, it feels like the weather is all over the place. It feels like one day it's cloudy, one day it's hot and sunny, and then the next day it's windy as fuck. Like it makes no sense.
Hmm.
And so we've seen that happening. We've seen disasters happening because of companies. We've
Hmm.
seen just the situation get worse and worse. And it's at a point now where I think us as like us as people, like the people that actually do care about these issues are like, shit, what other things could I possibly do? Because like it feels so powerless. It really does.
Yeah, the only thing we can ever do is try to like force the companies that are doing this to stop by putting so much pressure on the people that would actually do that to make them stop. Because that's actually the thing that will make a big difference. And like there has been like things that have gotten better in the last when it comes to some of these things. Like there used to be an ozone layer. I remember hearing about that when I was a kid, that there used to be a hole in the ozone layer that's not there anymore. The Great Barrier Reef is starting to like grow a lot more now. And so there are things that that can get better. It's just a fact that the corporations that are doing this, somebody has to actually force them to stop.
Yes.
And so if somebody was in charge who actually, if we could like get them to do that, even if they didn't want to, if we could convince them to do it by just harassing them about it enough for them to do it, because that's the way that you do that stuff, then a lot of this stuff that is going on would eventually over time start to like fix itself, because that's part of like the beautiful thing about nature overall is that it always finds a way to respond to change in some way and figure out a new way. Even if it's not exactly the same as what it used to be, it still finds a way to heal itself somehow. And that's kind of, I know this is, it's probably like a very like Pisces related thought, because I have a lot of like Pisces placements, but it just is kind of one of those weirdly beautiful things that no matter what happens like to us, like the planet is always going to be okay. Like the planet will eventually like fix itself no matter what. Like it will like the animals and nature will find a way to like kind of reset everything. The question is not that. The question is like what will happen to us when it's doing that. But I like think that it's kind of a beautiful thing that no matter what, it will find a way to survive, because that's just what nature does. And it's just whether we're a part of that or not, honestly. And that's just that's just my like Piscesness about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Say like if there's any time where we can all vote with our dollar, it's right now where all of us are hurting in the wallet area, and like we have to actually make our choices count. So maybe don't order that thing from Amazon. Maybe see if there's a way you could get it secondhand, or if there's a way that you could get it from somebody local. You know, do you need a new outfit for this occasion, or do you have something you can rewear that nobody's gonna remember you posted to your Instagram 2 years ago? You know,
yeah.
those
Like
are
if
like the basic
if you're not like me where you're always poor,
yeah,
imagine that you are, and
yeah.
like make the decisions that we make, because I never buy clothes unless I actually need them. Like I usually convince myself not to buy things that I just want. It for no reason. Like the a couple weeks ago, like I usually buy like some like sets of like t-shirts or whatever for the summertime. And a couple weeks ago I was like texting my mom and my sister like, "Hey, do you guys know of like a company that makes like cheaper t-shirts that I could wear during the summertime that isn't at Target, because I usually buy things at Target, but I don't want to buy anything at Target right now."
Yeah.
And they gave me like a couple links to places on Amazon, and I'll the shirts that I bought, I'll wear those like for like years. But
Yeah.
that's just what I do. Like when it's the close to the summertime and I have to wear like short sleeve things all the time, because it's going to be hot out, I buy like a pack or two of those, but I wear those things for like 4 years usually until they start like literally like breaking where they get like holes in them. That's the only time that I get rid of clothes. Like I've had this shirt from Target for probably like 3 years now. I don't go and buy new clothes unless I actually need them because I don't have any. Or like around like my birthday and Christmas, I ask my family to buy me clothes. But the clothes they get me, I will wear the same way for years on end. I wear them until I physically can't wear them anymore. And so it's like if people did that kind of stuff, it would be easier. And just like always like a sidebar that I have to add on whenever we're talking about this stuff is that if you're going to be upset at people for like using single-use plastic, don't be upset at disabled people because we have to use that stuff.
Yeah. My soapbox thing for the end of this and my little like message, since I'm a fashion girly, is just try to take care of your clothes. Try to repair instead of buy new. I think I might have lost Shannon again. We're gonna end it here. We'll try to add in a second podcast day so this stops happening, especially because once we're done with TikTok, the battery power it takes to do YouTube Live is crazy. So anyways, we will see you guys next week for the end of Battle of the Labyrinth. We have 3 chapters left. And then whatever else comes up in the meantime. All right, bye.